All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 5:29 or 31, depends on which computer you're looking at.
The average is 5:30.
So we have a few announcements tonight. Call for volunteers. There's still openings on the Affordable Housing Trust, the Capital Improvement Committee, as well as others. You can find them online on the town website on the volunteer tab. Tuesday, October 29th at 10 a.m. Archbishop River Woods is being celebrated by Greenbelt. So everybody is welcome to attend that. It's from 10 to noon. Early voting is being offered starting this Saturday, October 19th through Friday, November 1st, from 8 to 5 in the town offices lobby. And finally, save the date, public meeting regarding Main Street, the Route 113 corridor planning project will be November 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. That will be in the annex probably, annex?
Actually, at the middle high school, in the atrium, yeah.
Right. Any other announcements? No. So regular business on the agenda, item A is public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to make a public comment online? Okay. We're going to take the next item out of order. This is item FA. We have a presentation by our neighbors table by Will Courtney. So you said 10 minutes?
Okay, maybe shorter, yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet as best I can. Essentially what we're looking to do, you know who our neighbors table is, we are the food access organization in Newbury and Salisbury. And we serve 12 communities, if you count Byfield and Newbury separately, in the region that can access our services. There's obviously lots of other folk. I can share this. This is some data on West Newbury food insecurity that we put together. The real goal of this is we believe that we can't really connect all the dots on food security if people don't know there's a problem, and there's a lot of communities that don't realize that there is a problem. You know, we know that there's seniors who are, Christine Marshall is here tonight from the COA, who need help for various reasons, but because of a lot of different factors, as we know, the rising cost of living, the rising cost of groceries, stable incomes, the COVID era SNAP being food stamps, was cut significantly in the past year. They've been boosted. So those funds of those people that were on the line, more and more people are falling through that crack. We're even seeing folks with full-time jobs, you know, maybe enforced or some hardship. We're seeing lots of folks with medical bills who are just struggling to make ends meet. So right now we serve, we have two markets. We use a free grocery store model in Amesbury and Salisbury, where folks can just register if they're from the area and come and get the food they need. Our mission is about service and with respect and dignity. And what that means to us is taking away stigma. They walk in, they don't have to prove financial. They ask for help. They're coming, they need the help. And if they feel like there's a stigma, if they feel like, you know, many people struggle for that first time to come to us. And what we're trying to do is say, if you need help, you should come get help. Essentially what we mean by food security is access to consistent, reliable food, reliable access to healthy food every day. We determine that need statistically based on demographic data like income and other factors. The SNAP gap, people who qualify for it, that usually they qualify for Mass Health, but don't take those services. That can be up to $300 a month that goes back to the local West Newbury market, that goes to back into the economy. And so we have a person who specifically helps people reapply for SNAP. That often is a game changer for many people. They just don't realize they qualify. We help with schools in the summers. There's a free lunch program because all these folks who rely on free school lunch and breakfast, they don't have that in the summer. That's 10 meals a week per kid that they have to make up. We try to bridge that gap. And then it's of course folks who are, you know, disabled, homebound, and that's where a lot of what the work at the West Newbury COA comes in. So if you just look quickly, you'll see, you know, that we estimate in West Newbury about 310 people are food insecure, about 7%. And when, you know, I spoke with Christine today, she sees about 20 to 25 people a week. So we know there's folks who are coming to us for services. Right now we have about 67 people registered. But we know there's probably folks who could use our help that don't have it. And so if you look in the schools, Page Elementary, one of every 10 kids, we estimate, is about, is low income, is likely struggling to, their families are likely struggling to make ends meet. That's not the poverty level, it's higher than what the poverty level is. But we know poverty level is impossible to live on. Pentucket and middle school and high school are that much higher. So for these folks, what we are trying to do, our goal is to build universal food access in the region, and that is ambitious. It's never been done. Our executive director, Lindsay Haight, is is a dreamer. She's pulling this together. And so part of that work is connecting all of the resources in the region, whether it's COAs, whether it's food pantries, whether it's meal programs in Newbury. There's a series of meal programs in Newbury that serve every day for folks who need it. All the churches networked. We're also looking to, we're building infrastructure in Salisbury. If you've been around long enough, the old Fraser Pontiac on Route 1, it's kind of a triangle building. In Salisbury is now the Seacoast Regional Food Hub. That is now a brand new market that opened in June. That was but until our Amesbury market reopened, was seeing about 1,000 people a week, about 700 households. And we have the warehouse, which really is the connection for our region to capture more food and get it to the people who need it. And so we have the Greater Boston Food Bank now, which is the primary food source for most of the food pantries and stuff in the region. They, instead of all these folks using volunteers to go to Boston, they're now coming to Salisbury, whether they're the Newbury First Parish, whether it's Pettengill House. All these folks are now able to access their food down the road, less use of volunteer time, less use of vehicles. We're going to then next year look to capture surplus food. We're already getting some trucks already aware of us. They get rejected at the grocery store because of a ripped box or it's within 2 weeks of expiration. Grocery store doesn't want it. We can put it in our freezers. Our refrigerators and freezers are about the size of school buses in there. We're also letting our partners add storage. Most of these folks, they get offered a big pallet of food. They can't accept it. They just can't take food. They don't have any room. We're seeing that a lot in Haverhill, and we're working with Haverhill as well. So the goal is to connect all of these dots. Part of that is having local leaders informed. We hope eventually in the next couple of years. Our goal is 2029. We have a strategic plan, but our goal is to even keep the police, the schools, everyone to know where resources are, so no one is going without. Because we right now are seeing about 30%. We're seeing a 30% rise in our use. Every week, about 15 to 20 folks are coming to register for our services. And of those people, about 70% say that they have run out of food without money to buy more in the last 3 months. So there is just a continuing growth of these folks who just can't afford food, or are living without, or skipping a meal so they can feed their kids, deciding whether to pay a utility bill. So those are the folks we're trying to reach, we're trying to help. We ask just that you, if you're interested, stay informed. We're active on Facebook. We are active in many other ways. We have an email list that we are pumping all kinds of stuff out. I'm the communications director, and I'm putting stuff out in various channels almost daily. We have our annual breakfast on October 22nd. We will have a panel of folks, of some of these food providers, who are going to fill us in, everybody in, on what their challenges are and how we can do this better together. Together is really the key word for all of this. We have currently a group of about 500 active volunteers, many of them from West Newbury, who are helping us. We've been out, we went and visited the West Newbury COA to get more information from them. And so you'll be hearing from us, you'll be seeing us, and we just, when you see us, we want you to know, oh, these are the guys trying to do this stuff for folks who need food. And if you have any questions for myself or Christine of ways we can work with you or help connect some of these folks, we are looking for investment in the hub. This isn't a fundraising pitch, but the truth is we're just trying to get that over the finish line so we can, we raised about $5 million to pay for it. We're down to the last 2 million, and we're working with state grants. We've gotten lots of different foundations, donors, and all of that. But if you know John Cena, send him away. That's pretty much all I wanted to share with you. Just wanted you to know that we're here and we're here to help. And if you'd like to join us, if you'd like to work with us, we're here and we love your partnership. So.
Any questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Obviously, if people choose to contribute, cash is always good then, money's always good.
Money always helps.
But, do you accept, say, produce, during those months of the year?
Sure.
I know that Christine, that there's some stuff downstairs frequently.
Yeah.
But is that, if somebody has
Yeah.
access?
Well, so, and that's one of the things, right? So a lot of these food pantries just do dry goods that you can store. They don't have refrigeration, they don't have storage for that stuff. And so we really believe in everybody. We have minimum standards in our markets where we have fruits and vegetables, we have milk, eggs, meats, frozen meats. Those are all part of a healthy diet. We're not serving their needs if we're not serving those things. So we absolutely accept donations at the Seacoast Food Hub on Route 1. Under the awning, people can drop off, but we've got local farmers who are donating. We've got, stores, all kinds of stuff. So if anybody wants to donate, on the website, and they're welcome to donate in Amesbury or Newburyport. Amesbury or Salisbury. And certainly volunteers, money's a part of it. Volunteers are a part of it. Information is part of it, sharing information. So anyway, if anybody can help in that way, it'd be great.
I just had a question on your flyer here. How are you defining low income? Is that the HUD low income definition?
Yes, so that is off of the DESI, the Department of Education website.
Okay.
That's where we source that. And the food insecurity data is really a combination. The Greater Boston Food Bank has a PhD, public health PhD, who uses poverty and income and mass health, SNAP, kind of puts all that together and builds an estimate of what they think folks are. It's a COA, they're helping the folks who live right there and serving a lot of those folks. And we know a lot of the families are coming to see us.
Right. Angus, any questions from you or?
No.
Okay, great.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your presentation.
Christine, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
No, all of this information is in our newsletter every time it comes out, every other month, as well as, the Pettingill House and Community Services of Newburyport. So, I mean, this is where we send people that are looking for more services than we have in our small pantry.
I think people who come to see us and the people who do come to see us are surprised at how convenient and easy and accessible it is. And I know you said, as long as you're open, people
Yeah,
can come.
people can come in, yeah.
So,
Great.
thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Sure. All right, so we'll go back to item D now. Welcome, town manager updates.
I think you all know this, but I wanted to get it on the agenda just to have a higher profile for the community, for people who track the agenda. We have a new town planner, Katrina O'Leary. Her first day of work was last Monday, and we're just delighted to welcome her. She comes to us with almost 2 decades of experience, including a decade or so in Middleton, as well as prior experience in Raleigh and Salisbury. Salisbury or Newbury. But she's gonna be terrific, and we've included her in a number of meetings in her first 2 weeks on some of the major initiatives, River Road, Route 113, and so forth. So obviously it's gonna be some time for her to gain traction with the primary responsibilities with the planning board and permitting and oversight of those issues. And there was obviously a period of vacancy between Sue's departure and Katrina starting. So I've told her, definitely focus on those day-to-day needs first, but definitely once she kind of gains traction with that, she's going to be, I think able to help us advance some of the bigger policy initiatives that we've talked about over the last 6 to 12 months.
Great.
Middle Street Bridge, we had the bid opening on October 1st. We received 4 bids. All were from firms that were on the MassDOT pre-qualified bridge list, and all were in attendance at the required pre-bid meeting, so meaning all are eligible. We're currently going through the review of proposals. BSC is assisting us with that. Part of what they provide is a breakdown of all of their unit pricing with a detailed grid showing how each of the 4 bids, what they did on the different issues. So we're getting not just the bottom line comparison, but you know, what's driving why some are higher or some are lower. So we're not ready yet to announce, you know, the successful bid, but it's, I will say 3 of the 4 are within, you know, what we had anticipated. 1 is higher, but 3 of the 4 are at or below the estimated budget amount. So we're very, very optimistic that we will be in a position to award a construction contract this calendar year. In the meantime, we're also working actively with the city and with Mass DOT to scope out resident engineer services. We have leads and potentially 3 resident engineers, so we're doing kind of sounding that out, as well as putting together scope and talking about, you know, do we really need full-time? Do we need, you know, part-time? But we're definitely gonna need, you know, a dedicated project oversight. So that's some part of what we're working on.
And that will be funded as part of the total?
Yeah, that was embedded in all of the cost estimates. So that's within what is available and appropriated, yeah.
And we're not obligated to take the low bid?
We are the low responsive bid. So that's where, like, on a couple of items, you know, where BSC had estimated X, and if something comes in at 20% of X, we want to understand, do they, you know, are they responsive? Are they fully aware of what's needed? So that's some of the kind of evaluation that's going on.
Okay, great.
And because of the size of the project, it's heavily regulated by DOT, so they've been provided, you know, we're continuing to provide them all the information they required. We're obligated to provide them within the, I think, 2 or 3 days of bidding. We provided them the apparent low 3 bidders, and then once a contract is awarded, they publish their own kind of who was awarded it, what was the pricing, all like hyper detailed breakdown. So
Will they also pick through the bids to make sure that there are no inconsistencies?
no.
So is it primarily Caitlin that's working on this with you?
Yeah, with support from BSC.
Right.
Next, I just wanted to, you know, keep the board apprised. This, again, nothing you don't already know, but the Board of Water Commissioners posted a meeting last Monday that was attended by Greenbelt, Mass DCR, and actually someone from DEP was also there regarding the proposed Greenbelt acquisition of the Society of St. John the Evangelist property on which the well field sits. Just yesterday, the Water Commission posted a site visit for this coming Tuesday morning at 10. They reached out to Greenbelt, and Greenbelt got back to Jack earlier today that they are going to be in attendance. Vanessa will be there.
Mhm.
I think Dave Rimmer will, he's out of town next week, but Vanessa and someone else from her office will be there, and Christine Barry from DCR is also going to be there Tuesday, and I plan to attend as well.
Great.
I don't know. I know we have the Water Commission here.
Well,
That's
just an
kind of my
update, yeah.
update. So I
Yeah.
just, next item, had a meeting earlier this week with, my counterparts in Groveland and Merrimack, regarding the Pentucket Regional Agreement. There's been some progress there. Groveland has marked up the, changes that we sent some time ago, and, it looks like there's gonna be agreement on a lot of things. There's a couple of new items they wanna put on the table. It seems like the one thing that is not gonna be agreeable is the language about the elementary school, you know, prescribing that there be one in each community. So
Do you
right
have
now,
an idea what's behind their objection to that? Is it a perception, or is there something?
Yeah, I think it seems to be, there's a suspicion that there's like something up, that there's something, which, as you know, that originated with a former finance committee member really just looking to say, hey, in the event there was ever a future intent to regionalize elementary, even between two of the three towns, why have this agreement stand in the way? So it was really intended as a kind of, I mean, you all were there, so, there's not like a plan or a proposal, but it's apparently been greeted with some, suspicion is the right word, actually, that's the exact right word, so there were two sections, when we met on Tuesday that needed to be wordsmithed a bit. One Rebecca Oldham took ownership of because it's really translating her board's comments into something that we all can read and understand. And then there was a section that I offered to take a crack at kind of recrafting. So Rebecca sent me her draft, I think yesterday. I haven't looked at it yet. It'll be next week before I can get to that. So once I have a draft, I will circulate it. But the goal, this is something we've got penciled in for the next agenda 2 weeks from tonight, because the goal would be when there's that regional meeting with all three towns in November, half of roughly the first part of that's going to be the state of the schools presentation with a preview of the FY26 budgeting issues, and then the second part of the meeting is really where the superintendent and the school committee kind of take a step backwards, and that's more for the three towns select boards, finance committees to talk about the regional agreement. So we'd like to have a good idea coming into that of what are the areas of apparent agreement, if there are areas of potential disagreement, to kind of use that venue to see if we can't agree on a package of changes that could then be brought to the Springtown meeting.
Mhm. And any input from Merrimack?
Yeah, Carol was there and yeah, I think they're gonna be generally agreeable.
Okay, they're not bringing anything new to the
No,
table. Okay.
no.
All right.
But as you know, once there's a updated draft red line circulated,
Yeah,
sometimes new.
Well, that's what this stuff comes up.
Groveland did last time, we were all the way down the path, and at the last minute, they started.
Yeah.
They have to understand that if that happens, this will be dead in the water again.
Yes.
I mean, that was
Yeah.
really strange.
It's always possible that people would want it to be dead in the water again.
Possibly, that's fine, but, I mean, there's no structural issues with it the way it is, it's just some housekeeping that could clean up a few things.
Right, yeah, and I think I can definitely speak for myself and Rebecca and Carol to say that if coming out of that regional meeting next month, if it looks like there's some things that aren't of clear agreement at a staff level, our preference would be just table those for now, so we can at least get some things done, some of the clear housekeeping. If all three towns agree, let's at least get that done next spring, so. But anyway, it was a positive meeting, and some of the things that Groveland had previously suggested, which were different than ours, they've actually now removed. So there's some, thinking that's going on. And then other active projects initiatives, really there's just a couple of things I was going to speak to. One was I included in the packet the memo I sent to the school committee that is on their agenda for Tuesday night. That's just to get there, to seek their endorsement of, that they would be agreeable to modifying the land area appended to the lease to, exclude the roughly 450 feet that would be need to be turned over to DOT as part of the crosswalk project. Another thing, I'll just give a brief update.
Can I just ask a quick question about that? Does, I guess maybe I was misinterpreting things. I thought that DOT actually needed to take ownership, but it sounds like from what I've read, both in the town meeting materials we've seen and the way that discussion was worded in tonight's packet, that DOT is really getting easement. They're not actually getting ownership of the.
I thought it was both. I think there is an area of actual anticipated lands.
Okay, I was.
Yeah. So we spoke to PDC. We actually met with them yesterday as just pre-scheduled meeting is just as we continue on the corridor project. They did, give us a brief update on this, that they have a surveyor right now drawing up a plan showing the exact area of estimated, taking.
Yeah.
So we'll have that for town meeting.
Okay.
I won't have that for Tuesday, but it is shown, if you look at the 75-100% design plans that were sent around, a week or two ago. There is an area where it shows estimated beginning and end point but it's basically to bring that sidewalk, the new sidewalk that would be going up the, secondary driveway to Page School fully within the state.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I understood that. It was just a question in my mind as to whether, and I have no objection either way, but if, I thought that DOT needed to take ownership of it, and I know the way I read it, and maybe I didn't read it well enough, but it didn't sound like it was ownership.
Yeah,
It says the
Just
select board would
conveyance.
convey it to the Mass DOT.
Okay, I missed that. Okay.
And should one of us be there, at the school committee meeting?
I think it would be great. I was gonna talk to Butch and Christine to see if one of them would be able to attend. I'm able to go, but I think, one or the other of them, or if one of you, I don't think it's gonna generate any controversy, but I definitely think we wanna have, be there in case there are questions.
Okay, so the town, because if we convey it to DOT, then, that's a town meeting, that needs to be authorized by a town meeting.
Correct.
Right? And that is, again, I looked at the article and it wasn't clear to me. Maybe, again, I didn't, because I was trying to get through this whole packet, maybe I didn't look at it closely enough, but, it wasn't, immediately clear to me that it was actually conveying ownership.
Mhm.
But, okay,
We can discuss that when we get.
yeah, okay, yeah.
All right, and what time is that meeting, Angus?
I believe it starts at 6:30, and Justin had texted me that he thought it would come up early, but I can confirm that with him.
Great.
And then the final item, I was just gonna give a brief update, and this is a meeting that Wendy was at as well. There was a meeting, last week of the Park and Rec Commission. And I just, things seem to be going really well with the, new staffing structure. Brian and Caitlin Parker were both there, and it's just a nice dynamic that's developing there between the commission and now that there's actually, staff who are more formally engaged with them, so that's good. And I also just wanted to make you aware, there's a very significant effort ongoing, that my office is involved with the commission to really look closely at the fee structure, what's charged, whether it should be different for local or regional or for profit, but to really, because that, as you may recall, the commission, Park and Rec Commission voted a fee structure, about 4 or 5 years ago, but it really, it had some issues then, and it's had some issues in its implementation. So, we've really been working to get the commission focused on that and to bring in the various stakeholders and user groups to ideally come up with a new, fee schedule that's clear, that spells out all of the many administrative questions that come in, while that's gonna take, I think, probably the remainder of the fall and into the winter to play out, I just wanted to make you aware that effort is ongoing and it is a significant effort.
Yeah, I think the core question is, what are the fees for? Are we looking to completely cover the operation cost, maintenance cost, or is it just a, partial
Mhm.
coverage? So that's
Yeah.
in there, they have to grapple with what they want to accomplish.
Yeah,
with that.
so that's what I have for updates.
Great. Item C, department updates and discussion. Sage Center has a lunch and learn speaker series on October 24th, at 11:30 with our very own town clerk and town manager. This is about the town meeting. And also there's sorry? Did you
Oh,
want to say
the
something?
next one I'm gonna speak to.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so we, oh, you were gonna mention Neva?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry, go ahead with
Is
that.
that on? Oh, it's not.
No, I'm gonna talk to Maya.
Okay, great, yeah, so the other Sage Center, meeting is next Tuesday at 10 a.m. and this is about the MEVA transportation, system in West Newbury. Somebody at a meeting last night said, we don't even have a bus in West Newbury. I said, but we do.
You do now?
So, yeah, so this is great. Any questions, reach out to Christine Marshall. And now you can go, Angus.
All right, so earlier this week, we did receive, some difficult news from Maya, our insurance provider regarding renewal rates for retiree health benefits. They had told us it was likely to be a significant increase driven in part by higher utilization, higher prescription drug costs, as well as provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act that limit the out-of-pocket maximum to $2,000, which transfers more cost to the insurers. So anyhow, bottom line, we did get our formal renewal proposal. It's showing a 20.58% increase for retired health insurance. Right now, we have 28 participants on that, including 19 retired employees and 9 spouses. So 28 total, and the increase is it's going to take effect. I haven't signed and returned the proposal, but you know, that's what it's going to cost.
So that's for next fiscal year.
No, that's for next calendar year. That's part of the trick of budgeting health insurance is those the retiree rates take effect mid fiscal year. So I do try to carry some contingency for that, as you know. I haven't run the numbers to see how, but I think it's gonna. But the bigger concern is the impact on retirees. So the monthly increase in the aggregate is going to be $71 a month. And right now we have a 50-50 share for retirees. So it's about $35, $36 per month, town cost and, participant cost. So I just wanted to share that information. Obviously, we'll be working with Christine Marshall, and with Caitlin Gilbert on, getting the word out and, offering what information we can, so at least people understand what's driving the increase. But another thing I just wanted to float tonight, and if something you want to talk about further, we can put it on for a future agenda. We have had some discussions over the last couple of years, but this really spurred them again about the 50-50 retiree split. As you know, the town employee split is 65-35 for active employees. For retirees, it's 50-50. That is the state requirement, so we're meeting that. But the town hasn't ever gone above that. So if that's something we wanted to explore, obviously that would have implications not just for near-term budgeting, but for long-term, financial exposure. So one thing that Caitlin and I thought was, if that was something we wanted to actively look at, it potentially increasing the town share above 50%, possibly engaging our actuary to do some actual projections of what that might, what an increase of 5 or 10 or 15% would, be estimated to translate to. By in a short, mid, and long term, because it plays through to things like the OPEB, exposure. So not good news. But I wanted to make you
All
aware.
right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Item C is just the MS4 stormwater general permit, was submitted on September 30th. Any questions from either of you on that?
I would just, one note I'll offer on that is, you may recall that the MS4 is supposed to be a 5-year permit, but the EPA hasn't issued new guidance to do a new round of general permit. So until that happens, we're basically held to our year 5 standards. So FY26 was our second year 5. We call it year 6, but it's really a second year 5, and we're now in FY25 in our third year 5. So basically the requirements from 2 fiscal years ago continue to be what we're bound by today. We won't have new requirements until there's a new general permit issued.
And what staff members are primarily responsible for all these things that are listed here?
It's a team effort. Christine runs point on assembling the annual report.
Yeah.
And make sure she gets the input she needs from other, departments, but that includes, health, planning, public works, conservation, building, I think just to some extent, and, so, yeah, it's a team effort, and, it's come together, really nicely. I think we have a good system. It's not, a couple of years ago, or really, it used to be like a big
Yeah.
crunch, and now we've got it where it's just, I think we do a good job year round of keeping the data current, and,
And it's MVPC who actually does the work for us, and then I review it or add to it.
yeah,
and
they
then
help put
disperse it.
together the annual report. So.
So all the mentions of the Greenscapes Coalition, who is that? Is that MVPC?
Yeah, so they fill all that in. and we-
Well, but Greenscapes is different. Greenscapes is a different organization. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
couldn't see, they were mentioned in almost every one of these things.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, because they help, so, so to speak, check the boxes on some items like, education outreach.
Yeah.
So some of the things you see on our website or social media on, cleaning up after your dog, or how to properly, rake your leaves, those kinds of things, those graphic
Yeah.
things, we get those from Greenscapes, and we pay them a fee every year. And, that, by virtue of doing, that, that helps us, satisfy some of our permit requirements on education and outreach, and they also do, work with the schools, and, go into the schools and, teach the kids about, stormwater and pollutants and so forth, so.
So that we're contracting with them directly, that's not through them.
Correct, yeah,
Okay, all right.
this report just documents what we do, but yeah, that's a separate agreement we have that's actually split 50-50 between, Public Works and Water in terms of, I think it's $5,000 a year,
Mhm.
and each of those picks up half of that, because some of what we're doing in compliance with our MS4 permit is also required of the water department under their DEP requirements, so it kind of advances their compliance as well.
Great. All right, the next item is board commission and committee updates. Our first is the CCRC, Climate Change and Resiliency Committee. So we have good timing, Lisa's on. Yeah. Yep, so this is, just an update about the special town meeting article and project scope. Angus, did you want to lead off on this, or?
I put basically a brief memo into the packet that the, work on a draft scope continues, and we really view the MVP grant expression of interest, which would be due at the end of the month, as kind of a really important marker to set down of what the scope would be. So I think that the town meeting warrant article basically covers, generally what the grant would be anticipated to cover, but the specific work scope is going to be, in process for some time to come, and ultimately it's going to be something the select board would be signing off on next spring, assuming the matching funds are approved this fall, in order to file the grant. So I think I just wanted to provide an update on the work that's ongoing. We do have a draft. We've kind of all, a number of staff have put their 2 cents into it, but not all of us have had the time to kind of thoroughly review it. But it's, I think the warrant article as written is definitely encompassing of everything that's, been talked about for potential grant funded activities.
Mhm.
Some of the discussions that are still ongoing and that will continue for time to come is things like, to what extent survey, or to what extent geotech or resource delineation, or how far can we reasonably expect to get on design, and how much is anticipated for public process and so forth. So one of the things we're doing is we've retooled the draft consultant scope that had been previously circulated, probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, into something that's more of a, generic town scope, because it's not a contract, it's not a proposal, it's a work scope that is going to be shopped around, if we get the grants, to multiple prospective vendors. So we've been retooling it to better reflect that it will in fact be a town issued scope, not, it's not a proposal from a vendor.
Mhm.
So, but that's also gonna create some, challenges on estimating kind of what would be the cost of different elements. Because unless we go out and seek bids, we'd be guessing. Some of the numbers that you saw in the prior document that, GEI prepared, for instance, on survey or on geotech or different things like that, were based on, information they've been provided by prospective subs to them, but they're not gonna be subs to them. They'll be either subs to a prime consultant or potentially, the town serves as the prime consultant and independently contracts for those elements, whether that's survey or resource area delineation. So, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, like we've talked about so many times, like with CPA, you don't really know what it's gonna cost until you have a scope and issue it and actually get bids, and you don't do that before you get a grant. So,
But you can't get a grant if you don't have an estimate of what it's gonna cost.
right.
So, I went to the CCRC meeting last week, and we kind of talked generally about the need to communicate with the select board. Sure, we're all on the same page. Chris, I don't know if you had any comments or questions, since you weren't at that meeting, if you even had a chance to think about this since the last time.
But I hadn't thought about it, I'm not sure how the comments dovetail. Obviously, we're gonna do the grant, we have to find out what the cost is gonna be. And there have been numbers banted about. They were significant numbers. So then my head goes the other direction. Another odd option you would have, and it'll throw some people. I think Rick said at the last meeting, River Road would impact about 40 houses. I went online and counted, and you take Worth Lane, probably 36, so you're pretty close. So depending on what the number is, if it gets to a huge number, as was speculated, the town could sit there and say, we're gonna buy all the houses and demolish them. 36 houses at $1.25 million is $50 million. You gain a lot of open space. You don't have to worry about what happens once you fix the road and it deteriorates again in 20 years. It's a definitive solution. So I'm saying, we need to know what that number is, because that's an alternative solution to consider.
We need to know which number is.
The number that was speculated could be the most expensive project the town has ever seen.
To raise the road and.
To raise the road and to maintain, and once you raise the road, there's no guarantee it stays there all the time. I mean, we don't know where this river's gonna be in 20 or 30, 40 years. So sometimes the simplest solution is to eliminate the potential damage that river could cause. So,
So that, would you consider that a no action alternative?
no, I would consider significant action.
Well, I mean, if you, in a typical alternatives analysis, no action is one of them. It's like the baseline, so that would be no action.
I would consider that your alternative to whatever else gets put on the table is more in excess of that. I mean, it does sound crazy, don't get me wrong, but you've got a heart, you would know what that number is. And by my comment, you'd say to the homeowners, we understand that the road is probably gonna deteriorate to be unusable at some point. Town would make offers to purchase at assessed values as of a date defined. And with that, if people are gonna say, well, I wanna sell, you don't have to, then your property value is gonna deteriorate. There would be a process in place to work through that, but it's just another alternative. If you're looking at 80 or whatever $1 million, here's your option with a known,
With a no action.
yeah, so.
Yeah, so that, I mean, yeah, I guess that's a potential alternative. And in the alternatives analysis, we should make sure that that's one of the considerations. Right.
And again, it'll catch a lot of people
That's
really off guard. But again, then the open space people will love it, because look at the amount of open river.
Well, also flood management, you got the whole.
Yeah.
piece in there. Yeah.
So again, I just want that to be in play as we start looking at the numbers. If the numbers grow too large, it should be considered as an option.
Madam Chair, that is happening in other communities. They're actually taking up that as part of their consideration, like Rick says, so it's not a crazy idea, actually.
What do you think, Liz?
Yeah.
Well, sounds very radical to me, but,
It's a variation on managed retreat, yes.
yeah, that sort of sounds like all or nothing to me. And I think the study that's being done to date has kind of looked at hot spots and what strategies might be available to address those hot spots. So I think we all know that this next grant will get us closer to understanding those strategies and closer to having
Right.
estimates for what that work would be. And the only other thing I'd add, and Rick and I participated in a call with Senator Markey's office, and there is federal money and there is state money that would be put towards these projects, so potentially, so pursuing this next grant and gathering more information about strategies will put us in a better position to take advantage of those grants. So I think that's another reason why it's important. I don't think anyone thinks ultimately the town would be footing the entire bill for this. It would be a combination of, resources, and hopefully that would include federal or state funds.
So is there a way to make sure that this work that we're proposing would provide the necessary information for a federal grant? Or would it likely require an additional study before eligibility? Any sense on that yet?
Yeah, I think it's too soon to know, but it will get us closer.
Yeah.
And I think Angus, in that meeting, and Christine that we had with Michelle Rowden, we were talking about getting conceptual designs at least in this next stage, and possibly a little bit more than that. So from that, I think you could start to look at what the costs are associated with it and focus on different parts of the road that seem to be the hot spots for, even in the long term, you can look and see there are certain areas of the road that will require attention sooner. And that creates another sort of matrix of options.
What monies will come out of the state and the federal will be kind of an ongoing process where they're starting slow. But I think the realization is there that there's gonna have to be a lot of funding out of both state and federal. But you won't know by the time you finish this.
Yeah, there's also gonna be a lot of competition for
A
it.
lot
There's
of
gonna be a huge
competition.
amount of competition, and,
Yeah.
and just being realistic.
But we haven't even-
Being early will probably be good, and for us, we will probably not be the most compelling, case.
No, but if you have ducks in a row early, you're
Right.
better.
Right.
It's like the transportation improvement program, not having gotten stuff ready. There are years when they're looking for the projects, and if you're ready to go, you're in better shape to go. So I just think it goes to the question of you're not gonna know everything by the time we finish this. You're gonna know a lot though.
One thing I would add on the potential availability of federal money, Christine had done a pretty detailed research, probably, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, of looking at potential federal funding and which may or may not be a better fit for this. And there were kind of 2 programs that kind of emerged as seeming like perhaps the most applicable to West Newbury. So that is something we're definitely, I echo what Liz said, that doing, this next work, if we get the MVP action grant, part of the intent of that is to try to position this project, or we don't have a project yet, but once we know what the projects are, to best position them for potential federal money. One of the things that's a little bit daunting about a lot of the federal grants, which you've probably heard me talk about a little bit before, is the benefit cost analysis that needs to be done at the time of grant application. You need to prove out to the feds that the project you're asking them to fund is going to have an actual, dollar savings relative to not doing the project. So that in and of itself is a major analysis. So that's something that as we, again, continue further with scoping the MVP action grant, I don't know, it feels like that's probably even premature to hope for in the MVP action grant, because you can't really include that in your scope until you know what the project is.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I just wanna make sure everyone's under, you know, it's a long road, to get to federal money. So, you know, I think we definitely wanna continue to do everything we can to position ourselves when the time comes, but that's gonna be, that's gonna take a lot of resources.
Yeah. So I know you have the meeting with River Road residents next week, right?
Yeah, there's a group of the Climate Change Resiliency Committee that are part of the River Road neighborhood.
Mhm.
So holding an kind of an informal information session this Thursday. So Thursday, the 17th at 6:30 in the town annex. And we sent out a mailing to notify the residents of the meeting.
Just River Road?
It
Like
was-
part of
it-
Coffin Street?
Well,
I,
the target was a River Road neighborhood.
right,
Yeah.
which is in there, which includes Coffin, and I don't.
Also
recall
Horace
seeing-
Lane, yeah.
Yeah, it's got several
Yeah.
areas, Cortland Lane, Jason's, I don't recall seeing the mailing, that's what.
Well, Coffin Street, it had just two addresses on the original mailing. It wasn't aiming to include the entire Coffin
No,
Street,
no,
but just
right,
down
but-
toward River Road.
Right, but.
Yeah.
There's a couple of us that are between the two emailed to
And
and.
And I recognize that, and I
No,
obtained,
you explained it, yeah, so.
well, I've obtained 13 additional addresses, so I will get those in the
Yeah,
mail
that's great.
as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We
I mean,
saved the
anyone
postage.
is welcome, but it's
Huh?
really.
We knew you'd know anyway, so you saved the postage.
Oh, no, well, I'm concerned about Margaret Mahoney, who sits on the bluff overlooking the river, so. But yeah, no, thanks, you've answered my question, I appreciate
So,
it.
I think we had talked at your meeting about, or maybe it was the last select board meeting, some kind of, similar or some kind of education effort to general town residents.
Yeah.
What's your plan on that?
Well, throughout this process, we've already held a couple of meetings for the entire town. So this next meeting for the neighborhood has a slightly different focus in just trying to get greater engagement and making sure, because it directly involves their road and their access issues. Making one more effort to see if we can pull more people in and bring them up to date on what's going on. But I would imagine in the future, as we move forward, that will be part of the process. And I think, in fact, the grants make that, you know, a component of what you're doing with the money, that you're keeping the town informed and doing that kind of outreach.
I guess I was thinking about town meeting. This is an article that the town is voting on. It seemed like some kind of, I mean, I guess we had talked about maybe the FinCom booklet being the vehicle for that, but I don't know if you could give a report at town meeting.
We do plan on giving a report ahead of that article,
Okay.
just to
Cool.
fill people in.
And like Wendy just said, Angus, we're gonna include something within the FinCom booklet too.
Well, right now, we've got the rationale.
Yeah.
If there's something beyond that, I would need to receive it pretty soon.
Yeah.
But,
Right, within days, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Christine?
All right, anybody, online want to make any, Elisa or Nancy, did you want to add anything? Not necessary, if not, just offering. Okay.
There's Nancy.
Nancy, unmuted.
Oh, I was gonna say that Liz is doing a great job, so thank you for representing.
All right, anything else from the board? Thank you, guys, appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
Okay, the next item is a capital improvement committee report to the select board about the proposed town meeting articles. Any questions on that? Comments?
Pretty soon.
Yeah,
Pretty simple, pretty simple.
2 articles.
Christine?
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. All right, so we don't have to vote to accept that or anything, it's just information, all right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's move on to, item C is, on the Mill Pond Committee. They had their junior fishing derby, a couple weeks ago now. It was a great success. They expected, well, hope for 10 people, and they had more than 50 kids fishing. It was just a wonderful event, families and kids all along the edges of the pond.
Anybody catch any?
Yes, a lot. They had a lot of prizes. There was a 16-inch bass caught. They had prizes for the most number of fish, the biggest fish in each age group. They had kids from age 3 up to 16. So, yeah, so big thanks to the Mill Pond Committee, the Carpio family also helped, and especially to Jay Goldweber, who was kind of the leading person on this.
He said he wasn't sure if anybody would show up. So pretty cool.
And, you know, it's interesting, Deb can probably speak to this, the, weather has ruined the, winter carnival for the last several years, so maybe this going forward would be, the Mill Pond.
We're gonna start stocking the pond.
Yeah, there's a lot of fish in there, so.
Not as many now.
Not as
Right,
many
right,
now.
right, right.
Was it catch and release?
It was, but some of them
Were
were
they,
constantly,
were they clipping the fins so they knew if they'd already been caught?
Yeah. there were some errant books, so you're just saying.
So you were there.
All right, action items.
Actually, one thing, it wasn't on the agenda, but I did drop into the packet, just, this email from, Elisa. A very helpful email on the municipal aggregation, just to keep you apprised as
Oh,
that
the
process
dates.
moves forward,
Great,
so.
thank you. All right, I don't see Chief Dwyer.
No, he's gonna be more like around 8.
Okay, so you can skip
we'll-
that
we'll
item.
Come back to that one.
So the next item is a special event permit for Myopia Fun Club. Here's the 22nd. Jeff is here, if there are any questions on
Just got an update to this. Right?
So we just, asked people about that.
it? Sure. Oh, are these for everybody, Jim? I didn't.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, that's-
This was originally intended to go out from Indian Hill and do an entirely different route. But, it was moved to Pipestave. And, I've been concerned about riding in Riverbend this year with all of the dead ashes. I thought the trails would be in terrible shape. In point of fact, they are in beautiful shape. So the route here includes trails into Dunn property, Pipestave Hill, Mill Pond, Sawmill Brook. We're making a little loop down at the bottom end of Poorhouse Lane, then going back along the town forest, along the pond, crossing Main Street by the solar array. Before they cross, the hunt will probably stay in that field. We have the riding club has our 3-phase event on Sunday. So the jumps will be decorated. DPW has done a beautiful job mowing the fields. So the spectators and riders should appreciate, watching the hounds and horses in that field, both Sunday at our 3-phase event and on the 22nd for the hunt. The trail then will cross by the solar array, take the old Myopia Trail down, across the Indian River bridges and circle in Riverbend West, or they may go out to Coffin Street. And when I spoke to Michael Dwyer today, I assured him that we would have both a lead car and a following car on the road when they frequently hack on roads in town. Sometimes they'll do the whole length of Stewart Street practically, or Bachelor Street between Rick Thurlow's house and Moulton Street. So this is a comparatively short hack, and Coffin Street isn't terribly busy. Once they turn onto the River Road, it's, there's just a few houses there. And then they'll go almost all the way to the river, circle back up through the hayfield and up the Water Tower Trail. And we need to thank ECTA for doing a lot of trail maintenance on this trail this year. And also the hunt themselves, when they go out to get ready for a hunt, they do a lot of trail clearing. So it's a benefit to everybody to continue to have the hunt. I was looking at this folder. These are the equestrian events that I've been a part of since August. And I counted there were 8 different occasions that people are taking advantage of it. So delighted that the hunt can continue to ride here in West Newbury. And I think we won't have any issues. We've done this for 100 years.
So what, I had a question. Chief Dwyer said he will be providing support for this event. What does that mean? Just the
Vests, stop and go signs. He said he would be, he's working that day and would be available. He didn't think we needed a
So it's
detail.
not a detail.
Right.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
I have the same question. As long as Chief Dwyer's good, I'm good on that. 2 questions. Talks about the application, if it's within 60 days, there's $100 fee. I don't know if that's play. And then Deb has signed it. My question, we don't know, are you authorized to sign for Myopia Hunt Club?
So that's an interesting question. From a liability perspective, I don't wanna,
Well,
but
you're representing them, is what I'm
I
saying.
am,
just-
I am. Customarily, the person who serves in my role, which is the 2024 Myopia West Newbury Land Captain, signs that form. So I continue to do so.
Is that a concern, Jim, or I guess in terms of liability, or a concern for Deb more than the town, I assume?
Liability for myopia. I mean,
Yeah, but is it the town's concern? I guess that's my question. The insurance certificate is for myopia, right?
Right,
I mean, I don't think you'd be here representing it if you weren't empowered to do so.
well, as I say, I picked it up this summer and and looked at the forms that were filed previously and it was signed by my predecessor. But if, I'm happy to make a call tomorrow
I mean, typically, with a certificate of insurance, they are sometimes submitted kind of with a broad, just a statement of additional insured.
right,
Often, and probably preferably, is additional insured for a date and an event. Often you'll see that the certificate holder will state for event on October 22nd. That way it's an explicit acknowledgement from the insurance provider. It's not just some blanket 365 days a year, like you're covered for anything. It's more like on such it provides clear indication that the organization has notified its insurance provider that there's
What
going to be
they
an event on such a date. And that way, if there were to be a claim, which obviously no one expects will ever happen, but if there ever was a claim, you wouldn't get into a situation where the insurance company was walking back from the certificate of insurance.
And would that be right on the certificate?
Yeah,
or-
it's right. It's typically right in the certificate holder. You'll see a little note that says for,
I think we've had that on other.
yeah, some have it and some don't.
Mhm.
But I think if there's any question whatsoever as to whether the organization holding the insurance is, to Chris's question, I think, that would clearly resolve it, because that would be clear documentation that the organization's insurer is affirmatively,
I will
naming the
ask,
town as additional insured for that date.
Yeah, can you look into that then?
yes, I will.
And just to be specific, we'll get another event permit coming up for the race, and it talks about 10/27/24, the Newburyport Half Marathon, 5K, insured by, it specifies exactly what everything is there.
Right, yeah, that's more typical, yeah.
So should that be a requirement for us going
I
forward?
would think so.
I think so, yeah, I mean, that's how
That would
it's,
make sense.
yeah, because the insurance company, they're not intending to
No.
insure the town for some unspecified, like,
So then the other question, Deb, was on the $100 fee, if it's within 60 days, were you aware of that? I mean, it's right in the beginning of the special event application.
It's right above where she signed too.
Yeah. So if you submit the application less than 60 days before, you have to pay a $100 administrative fee, and that's whether you're a profit or nonprofit.
All right.
in your organization.
And
Or you
it's
could
called,
change the date.
it's called an administrative fee.
Yeah.
I will make calls to the appropriate people at Myopia tomorrow.
So do we want to move to approve this condition on those 2 items? Or what?
3 items.
3 items?
Police chief approval, I mean, is he saying,
He said he has no problem. Well, let's see. We'll be providing support. She supplied me with a time.
You're gonna be seeing him later tonight?
Yeah, but I mean, this is just, for the special event.
I get it. But I mean, you could ask him. And that was my understanding, was that but he did say that he would talk to you, so.
Yeah.
well, I'll make a motion to approve the permit for Myopia Hunt Club event pending approval of police chief. pending updating of the certificate of insurance and the fee of the $100 being within the 60 days.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
So you wanna just work with Jim to button up those last two items and. All right, thank you. All right, the next item is another special event permit for the Newbury Port Half Marathon, February 27th. And let's see, we have a Millennium Running representative here. Any questions on the application from the board?
Yeah.
Okay,
Again, generally a good application. One question I have is under signage. It says not applicable. Are you gonna put up any pre-race sign notifications to let abutters know about this?
Yeah, good question on there. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good question, and thank you for considering the application again for the 11th year. Absolutely, yes. And when we said signage, we said no as a, like, we're not putting any like start line, finish line, because it's just the course. But yes, all the intersections along Garden Middle, Turkey Hill, all that loop that runs through West Newbury will have signage at the intersections, 2x4, 2 foot by 4 foot sign with the date and time of the race, impact, and that's in with a stake and sign we put out Monday or Tuesday of race week, and then removed with the last runner sweep.
The last runner's gotta carry all the signs back?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. Our truck that sweeps will do that.
Thank you. Again, it's a good, I thought it was a good submit on the application. You got an awful lot of police details out there too.
We do, safety is our #1 priority and try to mitigate any municipal concerns. Obviously having West Newbury Fire, Police, as well as Cataldo, ambulance service, as well as, of course, Newburyport, which the vast majority of it is, you know, we can't be too careful with that stuff. So, safety of everybody is our top priority there.
How many runners are you expecting again?
We're probably expecting somewhere around 1,500.
Yeah.
Instead of 1,000.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm not quite, that includes the 5K that doesn't go through town. So probably more like 1,000 in the half marathon and 500 in the 5K.
Okay.
So I was grouping those together. Sorry.
so one, I know you have a paper map that was submitted, but there's also a link in your application, and that's not a live link, just so you know, for the future.
I'm sorry, say again?
In your application, item number 2 is a detailed map with the route, and it says interactive map link, but it's not a live link.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I can look at that again. That might have been an old
Yeah,
link
it's not
that
a
you
big deal
provided.
because there's a paper copy in there as well,
Gotcha.
so.
Okay, we can revise
So
it.
it's also just a scanned copy that has, yeah.
And then ultimately, the $100 check was processed on Tuesday, so that's in the Pony Express to your office.
Okay,
So
I would have delivered it myself, but I'm at a function for my wife tonight, so I have to be remote, unfortunately.
It is active.
if you copy and paste it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, any other questions for John? All right,
Make a motion to support the special event application for Millennium Running, the half marathon, and a portion where it runs through West Newbury.
Sorry.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, thank you, hope it goes
Thank you.
well.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is a request for permission to hunt on Salmon Brook. So when we decided to table the hunting bylaw revisions, we also said that we would not entertain any applications until that was resolved. I agreed to have this on the agenda just because he had historically been allowed to hunt on that property. I don't know if the board would entertain grandfathering. I don't want to open the whole thing up again, but that's an option if we grandfather his use.
Yeah, I recall he spoke last
Yeah.
year. And,
Showed up,
yeah.
You know, he had, pretty good explanation of the history, and why he owns in that particular area.
Mhm.
And, you know, I mean, I would be supportive of grandfathering his use of it.
I don't know, I mean, again, I like the component grandfather. Are you gonna have any other people out there in the woods? That's the problem. Previously, it was private land and not the town's liability if something happens.
Yeah, if you look at the map where he typically hunts is out in the undeveloped part, there's some trails there.
He gave a compelling,
Yeah, no, I agree.
conversation last time, you know. Sounds like he's a very responsible hunter and everything else. I don't know if the town has liabilities at that point. Wasn't there gonna be a committee? I thought there was a group of people that were getting together to decide if we could have a parcel of land to hunt on and regulations.
so
Is that open space?
Open space in Mill Pond, we're gonna work on it, but we put that on the long-term priority initiative, so.
Yeah, and I think part of that, I don't know, because I haven't been to those meetings, but I think with Michelle leaving, I know she had done a lot of groundwork and research on that, and, obviously with her departure, and I think she left in May. It is not something I've gotten Clay involved with, yet, because it's not really.
I thought there had been a group of people who sort of got together organically and were gonna start working. I don't know, that's.
That we had talked about that for the dog leash bylaw, but this one, it was specifically open space committee and, so.
Rob's got a question.
Just wondering, when you say grandfather, are you talking about on a year-to-year basis pending anything else that you might come up with, that you could come up with, this is
Yeah, this
included or not?
would just be an annual.
Annual. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was assuming that, you know, by this time next year, I was at least hoping by this time next year that,
We'd have this all wrapped up.
Perhaps yes, perhaps no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if a committee was to be established, the intent was to find a parcel. We've got a number of parcels of land to be very well suited for this. It would dovetail with his needs potentially because he lives right there. So that's why this is unique. My question is, what can of worms does this open up?
That's why I felt if we are gonna frame this as grandfathering, that seems to be a little bit different than just,
Right. Right, yeah, no, I would agree with that. If it's a past use, you know, previous usage history, it's different than somebody who has never done it before on a piece of land that, you know, that they have no history with.
I sort of chuckle and wondering what the term for grandfathering is, because I've actually seen people hunting down a riverbed before. So they gotta come into the grandfather.
Well, they were not doing that legally.
I know, it was just the thought in my head.
He had permission from the Austins and also, the vendors.
You know, when Wendy had reached out to me on this, she had asked my opinion as to whether we're to consider, grandfather and allowing with that, in my opinion, open any can of worms, as you said, Chris, and I didn't refer it to legal, but my sense was that the select board as the custodial entity of the land has the same rights that any property owner has. If someone asks you to hunt on your land, you can say yes, you can say no, and just because you say yes to Sally doesn't mean you need to say, or, it doesn't mean you can't say no to Jim. So, as a public board, obviously your sense of precedent and fairness and so forth, and that's admirable, but it's not, you can't be compelled to allow something. So if you feel you want to allow it, you should do that. And if you feel you shouldn't, you shouldn't. I think on this matter, I'm not personally as, concerned about like precedent issues, so. But I was specific in my advice to Wendy earlier this week. I hadn't reviewed that with legal, so if you wanted like to refer that to legal, that would be a different thing, but that was my sense of it.
All right, so what do we wanna do?
I guess my question is, does the town own liability on this?
Well, I think we did anyway. The current bylaw had us approving applications on any town parcel,
I don't think we've approved any. That's what I'm saying. So there's no liability on approval. If you say you can go ahead and hunt here, then again, I always think of the example was many years ago up in Seabrook, and there was a lady hanging her laundry in her yard, the shot killer thought she was a deer. So, I'm not saying that's gonna happen here, but who owns that liability if it happens? So,
So is this something that you feel like we should get town council's opinion on?
Yeah, I like the concept of allowing the fellow to do it, I just worry about the what ifs.
Yeah.
I mean, I have hunters on my land, that's not a secret. Do we need town council or, I don't know.
You know, I think better safe than sorry, and I think, the liability question is a good one. I
So there was
also,
a liability question, a question for town council or for our insurer?
our insurer, yeah.
See, if we had a committee and they come up with something and said, you got a parcel, and suppose they said the Sawmill property would be great for hunting. And now we're gonna post all around the perimeter that, you know, during season it's hunting. And you let people know that, and people who, you know, it's different with, you just acquired the property, if there's people out there hiking and he's hunting, I just don't know. I mean, I don't go into the woods any time of year at this point, right? Simply because you don't know who's out there hunting.
One other, just point of clarification, I want to clarify is, in my reading of the request, he had referred to, principally bow hunting. I went ahead and took the liberty of putting in the agenda that there was a request for bow hunting, because I doubt you would entertain a request for anything like that, but I didn't know that, I haven't been in direct touch with the residents, so I think if this is tabled and brought back, we should make sure we're very clear on what's being requested, and if something is authorized,
That is specific.
exactly what's authorized. And one thing we did, you know, as I talked with the board in the past about, up in Maine, very different culture, very different legal framework, but we did have a very well-developed, policy and practice in place for requests to hunt on town-owned land. And part of what we did require is that if on the day that someone was going out there, we required that they notify public safety, so that if people see a car parked with, you know, that public safety has the license plate, they know someone's out there, they can tell people, yes, that's allowed, you know. So there are some things that I think when the time comes to have a, you know, a policy, there are ways to handle it that minimize any, you know, potential downside.
So Chris, would you be comfortable if we approve that for this year, only for bow hunting? And then, you know, look further into this, or do you really feel like we need an answer about liability? I'm not trying to pressure you, I'm just gonna gauge where you're at.
Well, again, the bow hunting is obviously significantly different, that's all I have on my property because of size limitations, but, whatever decision we make is incumbent on the town, you know, we make the wrong decision, something goes wrong, we look like we didn't do our due diligence.
So is it reasonable to get feedback from insurance before our next meeting?
Definitely,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, why don't we do that? Would you-
I don't feel more, I don't have, I like the concept and I
Yeah.
appreciate the fellow's presentation.
Yeah.
So I'd like to accommodate him if at all possible.
Yeah, so, you know, deer season, you know, bow hunting season is already open, and it's a relatively short season. What if we were to make it contingent upon, the insurance, our insurer, indicating that there's not a problem?
If you're gonna make that as a motion, make it just for this season only and bow hunting only.
I'll accept that, yeah, those,
Just specific to this gentleman.
yeah, no, that's fine, that was my intent, so.
And so I guess then it's up to Angus and I to interpret the insurance company's response and, you know, whether or not it absolves the
You said
liability.
the season's short, it goes until the end of December, so you've got plenty of time.
I think we'd be better off waiting just because I don't know what that response from the insurance company is gonna look like if we really do want this, you know, as a factor in our decision.
And also, when you talk to the insurance agent, you might wonder, about whether this is the type of thing, activity you might require him to be insured.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry, require what?
Him to be insured, just like, you know, anybody using town land for certain purposes, events, that was in here, racing. It seems to me that the question I would have is, so isn't he gonna also have insurance and should be requiring it? it should go along with this homeowners, I would guess,
I
but.
suspect insurance will come back and tell us that. they
Yeah,
have a
exactly.
rider on this
Right.
home.
I would make sure that's part of the conversation, I would say.
All right. So we table this to the next meeting?
Okay, well, I guess after the second, I guess that's what we did.
Well, so, but
Yeah.
I take your point about the
Yeah.
season's already started, which he
Yeah.
meant, so it goes until December, Chris? Okay, all
November 30th.
Yeah.
right, so our next meeting is the
It's
24th.
actually, we posted it in the packet.
Yeah, it was in the packet.
I know that, hunting, yeah, but
Archery is still November 30th.
November 30th for archery.
that's different this year than it's been every other year, then it's gotta be.
There's primitive firearms, which is still the 30th.
Yeah,
It's always
yeah,
gone till December 30th.
Yeah. Shotgun starts December 2nd. And, the 14th.
I did highlight that because I thought it was curious.
Okay, so we all good with that?
Would this be specifically for this one individual?
Yes,
Yes.
All right, so they would come and get a permit to hunt on town.
no. He's asking for permission, the way the bylaw is currently written, the select board can give anybody permission to hunt on town-owned property, but we have not done that. because
All right, if you were to get additional requests, would you approve them?
No, unless they had prior, permission to hunt on that piece of property.
Okay, so
That's
that's,
the only
The
reason.
grandfather is
Right.
the only.
that's the claim that, okay.
Yeah.
and
I would observe that that property is now getting used by hikers
Mhm.
and when.
Even in that back section, Deb?
Yeah,
in
so
the
this
wet
is part of
section?
the exhibit here, which this is the.
That's the area. Nobody's back there yet. No, that's, okay.
All right. thank
And
you.
if the town does approve it, every hunter has to have a written letter on their person from the, you know,
Right, from the owner of the
we
property.
would technically have
That's in
to.
the bylaw, right?
Well, that's also state law.
Oh.
Yeah, if you're gonna hunt on somebody else's property, you're supposed to be carrying a letter that specifically gives you permission to hunt on that property.
Mhm. Okay. All right, item E, review and recommend propose special town meeting articles, so there are just two that we're voting on, correct?
Correct.
The first is the transfer free cash. Both Rick and I went to the FinCom meeting and participated in that discussion. I don't know if you have anything to add on this, Chris, or any
I
questions?
do, I'm just trying to catch up
Oh, I'm
on my
sorry.
notes. So I think FinCom approved 220. And in the interim, I did talk to Rob. And it was, we had the whole conversation, what's the right number? I know it's coming. Because you've engaged the services of the agency with the state.
What the.
The analysis
balances
of the
and-
free cash versus
Yeah.
the stabilization and where they should be. And the thing that sort of, I mean, by doing the 220, I get it, I read Angus's memo. You bring it down to the 2.48%, you're under the 2.5, which is great. It's more of a big, long-term, you look at that graph where you've got the fund balances. And from 2020 to now, it's a highly upward trending on both accounts, even though it's been spent down. You're up $700,000 combined amongst those two accounts in 4 years. It just seems like the town is sitting on a lot of funds, both in free cash and stabilization. And I'm wondering if free cash has grown too big, too fast. You know, I wouldn't have hesitated to say 250 or 300,000. That's without any analysis because it's grown so much. Stabilization's a different component in my head.
Yeah, well, stabilization, I mean, it seems to me that that's, we're less likely to overshoot where we ought to be there. You know, there are gonna be long-term capital needs and the money will be used.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, it is different, and you do have to look at the entirety of the two accounts, I do agree. The other curiosity was on the next page, Angus had the chart of the local receipts, the estimated versus the actual, and the actual is $300,000 more this year than the estimated. So again, this is how we keep growing free cash if you're a taxpayer sitting there going, why are you taking my money and putting it in a savings account with no program?
Mhm.
And I think as select board, we ought to be slightly considerate of that in some fashion. I will support the 220, I would support more, I don't know where everybody else is.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, my concern was knowing what our target balances were, so perhaps in fact, we could do much more. If we don't see the need to, for free cash for a particular year. And so we are in progress of determining that, so. I mean, I feel comfortable going with Angus, what Angus has proposed.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buck Angus anytime, you know that, but.
Well, the other thing is that as far as, I mean, personally, I think 220 is a good number because it does bring us down to the target. And I really wouldn't be inclined to go farther than that because I think that we will need to build up our capital, our stabilization further. Because regardless of what we decide to do with, say, Page School, it's gonna cost money. And it's not gonna cost a little bit of money. And so the farther ahead we get, the better I mean, we have to be responsible to people.
That's
who are paying-
stabilization, not free cash is money.
I understand, but the point is we can transfer free
Right,
cash
so
later,
that would be
to stabilization. And, we have to still be responsible to the taxpayer now as opposed to the taxpayer in 10 years. The people whose money is being spent now, or being taxed, who's paying taxes now, we need to be responsible to them now. But, we need to be responsible in the future as well.
The discussion you're having right now is the discussion that will be done better when we have the state.
Absolutely, I understand that.
No,
Yeah.
I know you do, and I take Chris's point, but I think that it's gonna be best done when we have some data in front of us and perhaps the ability to actually talk to someone who looks at a lot of towns and cities. I think it's premature to be guessing as to what the right number is.
If I went on the select board at town meeting, I'd be irritated because I think you're overtaxing. And you shouldn't be hanging on to that money. If you need the money, you put it in stabilization, you have a plan
Yeah,
for it.
right.
But don't keep it in free cash. If you've got the plan of stabilization, we're funding it, which we are, that's fine.
One scenario is very likely that we're gonna establish a free cash balance, but then to what Rick said is we're gonna then go off and start trying to establish a true stabilization balance, which is gonna be higher than what we have right now.
So we won't be able to make those decisions until we have the
No,
numbers,
of course not.
and we're in progress of that, so
We're in
I'm happy
progress
with
of
that.
Yeah.
So,
Again, I hope the taxpayers keep ecstatic at town meeting on it, because I think it needs that conversation.
yeah,
So I'll support the 220. I think we're doing a disservice by holding on to the taxpayers' money.
but how would you determine how much to get back? I mean, that's,
Well, the easy number would be the, inadvertent increase,
The turnbacks from the prior year.
299, 378.
Yeah,
That's just the receipts, not the turnbacks. I mean, if you add those together, it's a lot more.
Yes.
that's like double, right?
but you
More
could,
than double.
you could easily,
That's more like 750.
you could easily,
Combined.
you could easily change the amount of turnbacks by funding stabilization more than we have. I mean, the issue, yes, you could, Chris.
The turnbacks are from the budget.
But your free cash, you could be transferring free cash into stabilization, which we haven't been doing probably at the rate that we.
So I made the conversation to Rob on the phone, and I said, look, if I sit there and say, I'm gonna go buy a new car, I go to the bank and they take out 30 grand in cash, I go to the car dealer, and I get a good deal on the car, I only get 25 grand. That doesn't mean I take the extra 5 grand and go out and start partying, put it back. It's not, I hate the term free cash. It's not free cash, it's taxpayers' money sitting in an account, so.
Right. But what I hate is we don't budget enough, stabilization. We could be doing that, funding stabilization through the operating, and we wouldn't have the turn
But
back.
that should be a clear choice on stabilization, not trying to drag it out of free cash.
That may be where we're headed. Let's see what ends up happening when we get there.
And so the plan we should be having this, information by budget time, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yep.
So,
Yeah, and part of that is also, you'll recall at the Springtown meeting, the voters, created a capital stabilization fund distinct from the town stabilization fund. And the discussion at that time leading up to that was that by this coming spring, we expect as part of this overall analysis to have a recommendation as to what amount that's currently in stabilization would be recommended to go to capital stabilization along with potentially a significant drawdown of free cash into capital stabilization. So the capital stabilization would align with the capital program.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which, as Rick alluded to, needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. And that'll probably take a number of years actually to flesh it out.
All right, so it sounds like you can live with it, Chris, for this,
I can live with that.
all right.
So I guess we need a motion.
Yeah.
Move to, support the article for, transfer $220,000 free cash, as a, what's the right
To
phrase?
reduce the.
Yeah, to reduce that by 25, tax. Thanks.
Chris, you want a second? All right, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the next article is the prior fiscal year unpaid bills. We have clarity on the clock, so it's the primary thing. Did you catch up with that, or is you still?
No, we're still at 10 o'clock, I'm looking.
Okay, so the clock is the one on the church in the center of town.
The one you drive.
Wait a minute. Okay, so I vote no.
Well, so here, this is a complicated story. So the town actually funded the construction of the clock in 1909. So Jim and Max, you know, and when a couple of
Which
weeks.
church?
The church, the.
Left or
stone-
right?
Right, the right.
Congregation.
So if you take Church Street, it's the one on the curve.
They're the ones who have the cell tower that are making $1,000 a month on it.
Correct. So the town actually paid for that clock in the first place about 115 years ago. And, so this raised a number of, you know, questions at the staff level in terms of including, you know, is this something we should be insuring as an asset? It wasn't something that we were, you know, consciously aware we knew, current staff anyway, you know. Now, Brian knew, because he's been the point of contact for many years with the person who maintains the clock. And so he's now to the where he's been trained by that person on how to do things like reset the time for daylight savings and some of the adjustments that just need to happen over the course of the year. That's been part of the maintenance fee.
No, clock technician.
Yeah, you know, there would still, the towns or actually whoever is, maintaining the clock is still gonna need a specialist for things that might go wrong, but for the more routine stuff, Brian's now at a point where he is able and willing to do that. He has talked with a representative of the church, and Brian's told me that they're open to taking over financial responsibility for this. But I can tell you, for many, many years, the town has basically paid this bill once a year. It's a couple of $100s, and when I first learned it was the church in the center of town, my initial thought was like, that's not a lawful expenditure, because the town can't expend public funds on private property.
Yeah.
But that's where when Jim, or I forget who founded it, did some digging, and actually Wendy had some background on this as well, because it came up a little bit in the community preservation plan, a year or so ago, where Elisa had, she was very familiar with it, and had brought Wendy some, insight at that time, and it wasn't until this came up a couple of weeks ago that everyone kind of put two and two together. But yeah, to our surprise, it was actually in a town report from 1909 appropriating funds to build the clock. So I guess at this point, I would say, you know, the services were rendered, you know, the bill should be paid, in my opinion. So, but I think if we can get to where we're not paying that anymore, I think that's a good outcome.
Last time you, I think, had mentioned that, the church seemed to be receptive to
Yes.
actually taking ownership.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
then the question is, should we actually, can we surplus that? Can we transfer that for some nominal fee?
Yeah, I'm not
to
sure
the
where
church
I
and
haven't
take
personally
over?
been part of those conversations. I'm just kind of paraphrasing what Brian's
Yeah.
told me, but he has talked to someone from the church, and they've indicated openness to taking responsibility for those costs. So, you know, it hasn't gotten as far as talking about, you know, transferring ownership. And I mean, there's a little more information I'd be curious to find as to, you know, how in fact did that work? If the town paid build the clock, but the town doesn't own the land and the town doesn't own the building. Like, it's a weird thing.
Or was
but-
it gifted at the time?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
We
but
also put the staircase to get to the clock, like, we've done, like, this is a big amount of money.
But, so,
That's
so,
not this clock.
so back at that point in history, though, that was probably a public service, because in the center of town, there was a timepiece.
mhm.
It was also.
Everybody didn't have an Apple Watch, or in my case, a cheap Casio watch on their wrist, so,
It was also.
They-
Used for
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a purpose
yeah.
why we did it.
All right, so we'll
That's an issue.
continue to look into that. So what, any other questions, Chris, on these amounts?
Well, you gotta pay it. I'll make a motion to fund the unpaid bills in the previous year.
Second, any further discussion?
Yeah, I hope we clean it up later on.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Okay.
You need the clock?
The clock issue,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
turn over to them, let them approve.
Okay, great. Brett is in the group. Let's see, moving on to the action items, F. So we just reviewed, finalized, and approved the signing of the warrant, and, our town moderator, Casey Swallow, is here remotely. Casey, did you have any particular questions you wanted to ask, or? You're muted.
Casey, you're muted. We can't hear you.
All right, now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I had two questions, but you decided not to take up the articles that I had questions about, so I'm not sure what to do about that.
Well, we're talking about the warrant, so if you have a question on an article, that's fair.
Okay. Article 5 requests 3 separate things. And my concern is about the motion on Article 5. Is the motion to just do all 3 things? Is there any opportunity for people to approve part of this article or part of this activity and not other? Not that I think anybody particularly would, but if the opportunity is not there, of course they can't. And so I'm always a little bit leery about articles that include multiple different actions that then require a single motion. So what's the plan for the motion is the question.
Mhm.
And
So should we resolve that first before you go on, or?
sure, yeah.
So I can speak to that a little bit. I did talk to Tim Zessen about that question, Casey. We spoke yesterday, and he did say that it's procedurally fine to have multiple motions under a single article. In practice, because the sidewalk or the crosswalk project really can't go forward without the land conveyance to Mass DOT, we view them as really integral. Voters approved the funding, but not the land transfer. You couldn't go forward with the project because that was a requirement that came out of the Mass DOT permitting process, is that the new sidewalk that would run up the secondary driveway to Page School, Mass DOT is requiring that be fully within the state highway layout, which would require about 450 square feet of land to be conveyed to Mass DOT. So I think in practice, they really are integral to one another, just like you wouldn't approve the conveyance without the funding. It's kind of part and parcel. But in terms of how a motion could look, Tim did float the idea, and he said it was procedurally okay and done elsewhere, 2 motions within the same article, where that's not something I've seen here, at least in the time I've been here. And Casey, it's not something, we've talked about. I don't know if that's something that people are comfortable with or not. It's definitely procedurally okay, but it seemed to me it's potentially more confusing, especially because there really isn't any function of adopting, it's kind of all or nothing.
It's all or nothing, yeah.
Yeah, they're mutually dependent upon each other.
Correct,
So
yeah.
Yeah, if they accept the full article, they don't, that's why it should be.
Okay. So he floated that idea, but Casey, tonight's meeting is the first time, the board's talking about that in terms of what the motion might look like.
It has always been possible to have more than one main motion under an article, and we have discussed that possibility in the past when whatever the main motion on the floor was failed, and someone wanted to make another motion that was still in the purview of the article, in an attempt to pass something that people wanted. But it's very unusual that that happens. And although there are lots of people in town who are very familiar with parliamentary procedure and know exactly what to do in case of some kind of a problem like this, most people are not experts in parliamentary procedure. And so the idea that they would ask to make well, what basically he's saying is that we can divide the article. We can say, well, we're going to vote on these three different activities separately. So there'll be three main motions under this same article, which, as he says, is completely legit. My concern is not whether this is something that can be done. It's that it causes the whole thing to be rather confusing. And I think it does present as all or nothing. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that people would want to do the crosswalk without doing the land transfer or whatever. That seems a little bit ridiculous. So
Well, we can't.
Well, they can.
they
That's not
can't,
an option.
and I don't know why they would want to, even if they could. So I don't think it's a big point in terms of what will actually happen or what people actually want done. I just don't like having an article cover this much activity in one article and have it be, as was stated, an all or nothing. And I think that there were better ways to go about this. But since town council has given his opinion, I have nothing more to say.
Okay. What was the other article you had a question on?
The other question is on the article you were just discussing where there are unpaid bills.
Yeah.
I'm not up to date. I know things have changed a lot. Long ago, it used to be that any unpaid bill required a 9/10 vote. Then that was changed. And if the money had been appropriated in a previous town meeting, but not spent, then it required a simple majority. And now I remember, but don't remember well enough, that they've changed it yet again. And there was another quantum of vote required for these unpaid bills. And I needed to be refreshed on that, but.
So it's a 9/10 vote for a special town meeting. If this article was on an annual town meeting, it would be, I believe, a 4/5 vote, but that doesn't apply here. It's a 9/10 vote.
Does anybody understand why 4/5 is significantly different than 9/10?
It's lower.
Technically lower.
I mean, just out of curiosity.
No, we don't. We just follow the rules. We don't make them.
Maybe it's the same assumption that we always have about the special town meeting versus annual town meeting, where there's more attendance at annual town meeting.
Right,
So
right.
they're trying to get more approval by assured that there's greater approval within the town or sufficient approval within the town.
So do any of the bills that are affected by this article come from money that was appropriated in a previous meeting, but was just not spent?
Yes,
And is that still just a simple majority? If it's money that was appropriated,
As an article, you mean, or as the budget?
no, in terms of passing a motion. So we have to go with the biggest count. If it's all lumped together, which it is, all the outstanding bills are lumped together, we have to go with the largest count for anyone. If all of these bills were bills that money was appropriated in a previous meeting, but not spent, so now they just need to spend the money, that would be a simple majority vote at an annual town meeting. And now we're getting into annual versus special, so now it's getting a bit confusing. And the way I'm looking at
it's a 9/10 vote.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was a separate article, and it was coming out of that article's.
Yeah, so this is coming from the budget, the operating budget.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're clear on that. We've confirmed that with council.
So it requires a 8,
Nine
9:10.
tenths
9:10.
for special.
9/10 for all, the whole motion.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the
One-
draft?
There is, one typo. After C to, shouldn't it read to authorize? C to authorize?
So I sent, you're talking about the D at the end of authorize?
Yeah,
I caught that. I sent out an updated draft last night. It's that.
I'm fine if you're fine.
Oh, yeah, so the changes that were sent out last night were where I caught that D, so authorized to authorize this, where it says 12 right here, should say 12 sheets. And then I just, in terms of formatting, I broke out the A, B, and C in sub bullets just to make it visually clear. So that's the one that I emailed out yesterday evening, so it's.
So
So
Rick,
you're
I
good.
think here at the end of this is what you were referring to. The C is the select board to grant temporary and permanent.
Yeah, I did,
easements.
yeah, I think I did,
Okay,
didn't read it well enough at the time. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just for things like grading easements, temporary, like that might be needed as part of the project. There, the contractor may need to do work on town property that's not a permanent easement.
Right,
So that's-
you're gonna be asked to do that by someone.
Yeah, that's different from item D, which is the conveyance of the roughly 450 feet.
all right, any other questions before we approve this? Could I have a motion to approve the?
Yeah. I moved it to warrant to John.
Second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a request to endorse Merrimack's letter to the legislature regarding Whittier Tech.
No,
That's incorrect. I think that
No,
was.
that was regarding,
governor about funding of
Yeah.
Nantucket.
yeah,
Oh, okay,
It was about the transportation.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think there was a similar letter drafted by, the superintendent, not this year, but a prior year. I think I remember seeing something similar to that.
My only question on this is, what, if we decide to go with it? Are the facts in here actually correct? I haven't fact checked it, I don't know how to.
How could-
Conceptually, he's correct in the fact that, yeah, the regional school district's getting a short straw, but
is this something that the finance person for Kentucky could verify, Angus? Would that be?
Yeah, we could send it to to Suzanne Wallace and ask them to prove it, yeah.
I don't know, did they say how time sensitive this is?
Well, you saw the thread in there, it said, it doesn't sound like it's, there's a hard deadline, so, I think if I sent this to Suzanne tomorrow, she could probably turn it around in a week and a half, and so, yeah, we could.
I would assume they actually had assistance from Nantucket on writing it originally, because
Mhm.
somebody from Merrimack had written to me and said, could I help them with this? And I said, talk to the school district.
Mhm.
I redirected him about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
oh, on this specifically?
Yes. I
Okay.
submitted this.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, when I got the note, from Jennifer Penny in Merrimack, that was the first I was aware of it.
Okay, all right, so we'll just hold off. If if it's gonna take 1 to 2 weeks, it's not worth approving it pending approval, and then,
I'm fine with that.
yeah, okay. Let's see, select board signature for the warrant for the general election. Any questions on this?
Just procedural, I assume.
Yes. You don't really want to have questions on
That,
Unfortunately, I have to run the election.
it. Regardless.
You didn't slip anything in here, did you, Jim?
Yeah, right.
All right, then, I have a motion to.
Yeah, I move that we approve the warrant for the November 5th, 2024 general election.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Are you not seconding? Thanks.
I was, I got.
Right,
I vote to, yeah.
okay, great. All right, moving right along. The next item is a request to extend unused FY 24 vacation time.
All right, and, the two requests we have received are in front of you in the packet. It's always possible we'll have more. We have not put out any call for people to request extensions. We have done what we do every year, which is notify department heads of the remaining balances for employees in their departments. And it's, you know, we then rely on them to let their staff know, make sure that everyone knows where they stand. You know, in practice, a lot of people know where they stand, obviously, because they track their accruals and so forth. But we have not included in, you know, the update in emails that the finance department sends. You know, if you want an extension, ask, because there's no explicit provision for that. But you know, as has been the case, you know, for as long as I've been here, that, you know, and you know, the way I explained it to Kim, our finance assistant, is if I'm charged with enforcing the personnel policy, I have no authority to deviate from that. But under the Town Manager Act, I'm charged with implementing the policies the board approves. So if the board waives a policy, then that's what I would enforce. So so anyhow, I guess my point is, the two requests we've received are in front of you. Possible we'll get more. Obviously, the board's next meeting after tonight is just 6 days before the end of the vacation period. I will say, just for reference, I do have 56 hours remaining. I don't see how I'm gonna take 7 days off between now and the end of October, so I might be before you in 2 weeks, asking for a couple of days, so we'll see, but what's before you is the two that you have in your contact.
I'm just afraid in general, these are all good reasons for extending it, but we keep extending it and then they're like impinging on their next year's, you know?
Yeah.
So at some point, I feel like we should not extend for everybody and just take it on a case by case. You know, what do you two think about this whole thing?
Well, the problem is it's different than private industry. Sometimes you get compensated if you don't use them.
Or you lose it.
Yeah, and it's rather
fine,
unfair
so-
because they're doing the work for the town, so.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll make the motion, I can discuss it, I'll make a motion, to extend the vacation days, the 10 unused vacation days for John Spalding and, Mrs. Butch
mhm.
through the end of December.
Yeah, one second.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in this case, they were filling in because they were short-staffed, so I mean, it's,
Right, it's hard to hold somebody,
yeah,
at fault when they were short-staffed.
yeah, the summer's the busiest time for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did come in the time.
Yeah, so. But I guess the bigger question, as Angus is alluding to, is, you know, we may have more of these requests.
Right, and this
Figure out how to
happens,
manage it.
you know, this is, you know,
An annual
the
thing.
6th year that
Yeah,
this question's come up, so.
yeah.
Although before COVID was done by only 1 or 2 people, I think.
Any further discussion? Angus?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The next item we're skipping over, correct?
Correct.
Select board meeting minutes.
Yeah, we skipped over, whatever.
The wage schedule adjustment.
Oh,
Okay, so August 6th minutes. Any corrections on page 1? Page
No.
2?
No.
Oh, shoot, wait a minute. I have one open in Adobe and one open. So just on the first page, under item C, in the second sentence, it says in Brown said it would. That just needs to be corrected. Reed asked if a flat fee was typical for the work, and Brown said, oh, maybe it should be was instead of would.
That was for August.
August 6th, yeah. That's the only change I had. That motion approved,
okay, approve the minutes of August 6th as amended.
all in favor? Aye. Okay. So now we are on to August 15th. I have a question on item B under town manager updates, the last sentence. Jennings also mentioned that the meeting discussed about supplemental and joint summer programming. Just wasn't clear on
I know what it refers to,
Okay.
whether it, is better to clarify or just strike is really up to you, but what I had mentioned was that, with, Jonathan Seymour and Justin, they've been doing a lot to, actively create activities to, make best use of the beautiful new campus.
Mhm.
And had run a number of summer programs this summer for the first time in the modern era, programs, tennis camp, different things. And so was some discussion when we had our joint meeting in August of the potential looking ahead for, any potential enhanced partnership between the school and one or more of the towns as to summer programming that might be jointly offered. So, I had included that in my update, but
Okay.
So what if I just read, James also mentioned that supplemental and trade summer program. Or
Or
discussed at the
discussed.
meeting.
yeah, I think
Okay,
that's,
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going, Chris, jump in if you have anything, or Rick. Item C, second to last sentence in the first paragraph, I would just strike the reference of higher echelons to MEMA. Jennings reported NDPC had submitted the town's draft hazard mitigation plan, you just say to MEMA. Is it MEMA or FEMA?
it's actually to MEMA and then to FEMA. And at this point, it's been approved by MEMA, but not yet FEMA.
Yeah, so just strike that phrase, the higher echelons. And then the last sentence of the next paragraph. The efficiency that had been introduced, I would just say by the MyRec platform instead of online innovations such as enrollment. I'm not sure that's accurate. It's MyRec that is being referred to, right? Maybe just say using MyRec platform.
It is, yeah. I mean, we definitely have done some things on supply orders that have made things much more efficient, but that's not through MyRec. That's just through, Amazon Business and different things we've done within the finance department. But
Next page, item CA, the last sentence, I would strike that reference that this could lead to mischief. I'm not sure that's what he said. Did he?
which other?
This is on the MEVA bus route. Rick had suggested a QR code.
He might have actually,
I think-
I don't know, but he might have actually used that word. Yeah.
Mischief? I mean, we're talking about like pirating QR codes for nefarious purposes. I wouldn't, do you think he actually said mischief?
I don't think it's generally, well, it depends on how you define nefarious. I think it's sometimes to point people to websites that you would prefer not to mention.
I think we can.
So like this, but I don't think,
Nefarious to me. That's not mischief. Right?
depends upon how you
I
define.
guess it's an
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, you're always able to close your eyes and look away. That's the way I see it.
But if you're trying to get a bus schedule, that's not fair.
Yeah.
All right, next item is C, addition of River Road. So is it true that the whole entire River Road had originally been part of the paving schedule?
It had, back in 2023,
Okay,
it had
but
been
not-
penciled in, but not
not
part of
this
the
year.
2024 now.
So especially given the recent
Right.
questions, it might be better to doctor that a little bit.
But it says here, but due to potential activities to rebuild the road, while the stuff will be filled with flood prone areas. Flood zone sections.
So River Road wasn't intended to be paved this year. It was that extra money was available and then the discussion happened.
Yeah.
Let's do parts of River Road.
Correct. That's
So,
exactly correct. Yeah.
okay. So should we just strike that had been originally part of the paving schedule? The possibility of paving River Road was discussed, but instead of saying it was previously part of the schedule.
Oh, I hadn't picked up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Yeah. Wait. Had been, okay, yeah. It hadn't been. originally part of the-
In fact, it almost seems like it ought to read River Road was not.
Right, yeah. Yeah, hadn't been originally.
Didn't say that.
Oh, yeah, maybe
But
there's
then
just
you
an
have to-
apostrophe T missing.
But,
That's easier.
but then you have to deal with the next part of the sentence,
Yeah.
but due to potential.
Want to write that second part?
Well, I think, but this is something we gotta make sure is,
Yeah.
you know, is accurate, because it is a source of some, you
Right,
know, contention.
Right.
so
and-
is that something you wanna work on, Jim, or should we parse that out right now?
Well, couldn't it read River Road had not originally been part of the paving schedule, period? Due to potential activities to rebuild the road and protect from flooding, it was felt it would be wiser to leave the flood prone sections alone.
Yeah, that's fine,
So just had not.
Right,
yeah.
and then
And
And
a
then-
period,
Yeah.
and then
But it's just new sentence, yeah.
could even take out the button to say due to potential.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
That last clause, begins at summer's end, I don't think that's necessary, it's confusing, school bus traffic, beginning at summer's end, maybe?
Well, prior to school bus traffic.
Yeah, that's good. The next comment is on top of page 3, this is about the Essex County Greenbelt, they did not speak about their efforts to place a restriction on the parcel, they're talking about purchasing the parcel, so. I guess DCR technically is putting a conservation restriction,
Yes,
so, but maybe just. I don't have to change that.
What happened if they just, if the word there, spelled THEIR, was just replaced with DCR? Representative speaking for Essex County Greenbelt and the Department of Conservation and Recreation spoke about DCR's efforts to replace restriction on the parcel. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate, but the premise of the conversation was on, well, I
Yeah.
guess it was, because we had 120 days to waive it, right, which
right,
is the CR, okay,
right.
that's good. Right, next one is on page 4 of 5, under item E, the Whittier Road working group updates. Chris, this is talking about your Zoom meeting. It says which Senator Bruce Tarr attended. Was this the working group meeting? Was this your conversation?
that was a separate conversation.
Yeah. Could you just say recapped a meeting that you had with Senator Shar? Because it sounds like he was at the working group update. Is that accurate, Chris?
I thought the phrase is okay, recap the Zoom meeting, which Senator Tarr attended, but how we wanna.
I mean, this sounds like the title is the Whittier working group update, and I'm just saying, I don't think he attended the working group.
Yeah, there were 2 meetings that took place on the
He
same
didn't
day.
attend the working group, it was a Zoom meeting, which we all,
Which is
yeah,
just you and he had, right?
and then you just gonna
Yeah.
recap the Zoom meeting with Senator Tarr, whatever, you can change it however you want.
All right. I would just say, with Senator Bruce Tarr
Participate, yeah.
instead of which and attended. Under item F, page school study, it said Reed wondered nothing about asbestos. I actually wondered a lot about asbestos. You could just say Reed asked about asbestos and lead removal not being included in the study. And that's all I have. I'm assuming there are no other comments, if you guys.
Make a motion to approve the August 15th minutes as modified. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the next set, the only things I had, there were 2 things that were struck, but that are still in here. I just want to make sure those get taken out. The first is on the bottom of page 95 in the packet. Like Parker insisted, and it has a line through. Just make sure that.
Removed it, sir.
Yeah, and then on the next page, under FA, it says bodies, has a line through it.
What page was that?
100, the next page.
Those are a couple of.
Oh,
corrections
sorry,
I would've made
96.
the next, didn't clean up.
Oh, okay. You see it, Jim?
Yeah, I see.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Anything else?
Make a motion to approve the September 5th minutes as modified. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next one is on the chairs meeting we had on September 12th. One correction, On the page 202, it says Molly Hawkins suggested, and she was not at the meeting. So I'm not clear who that was. Was that Lisa Umholtz? She talked about farming and, the pandemic. I think that was Lisa that said that.
Which paragraph are you on? 'Cause I'm trying to-
This is on the top of page 2. The last sentence in this first full paragraph.
Yeah, I think
see
that was
that. I don't
definitely
recall
Lisa.
who said that.
Yeah, you're right, she was sitting back there, yeah.
Okay, that's my only comment on that. Anything from you guys?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 12th as modified.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything on the next minutes?
I'm not asleep at the library.
I know
These
you're not.
facts,
I know
if you wonder why I'm not.
No, I had nothing.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of September 16th.
Second.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Having speedily gone through the minutes, we're caught up, right?
No, this one was set, which I just went through today.
Okay.
And access to those next.
Great. General discussion items, we've already done FA on our neighbor's table, so item B is the 0 Ilsley Hill application. I'm also conscious that Chief Dwyer has not popped in yet. You said 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. So
yeah, this has gone quicker than I thought it might.
are you?
You can slow down if you like.
Not complaining.
So help us frame the discussion here, Angus. What?
Okay, so there is as you know, there's a variance application pending before ZBA. They opened their public hearing. Heard, presentation from the applicant, heard, extensive public comment. And, the ZBA voted to continue the public hearing until October 30th. And actually, they voted to continue it, and then they convened on the date that it was to be continued. And on that date, voted to further extend it to October 30th. And that was partly, based on the understanding that the applicant intended to submit new or modified information. So, since that time, Jen Geary has been in active correspondence with the applicant's counsel. In terms of when can we expect a modified filing. So earlier this week, a modified plan set was submitted. That was what was included in your packet, and that was sent out by email to the ZBA members. We are aware that the applicant's counsel intends to submit what I expect is gonna be a narrative or some kind of memo to frame that. So what you have is a modified plan set. You don't have the narrative. We don't have that. Once we have that, that'll be circulated. But I know the plan set was submitted earlier this week, I believe, with the intent that it be ready for tonight's packet. So the reason this is before here on tonight's agenda is kind of separate from all of that. A member of the ZBA, Patrick Higgins, has sent a number of questions which he's directed toward the select board, your capacity as roadway commissioners. Some of this is kind of uncharted territory. This kind of situation doesn't come up often, but it is a somewhat unusual situation where the frontage that exists is on an unconstructed public way, but the layout is unquestionably a public way. So some of, I think, the guidance that Patrick is looking for from the board speaks to things like the board's expectation as the roadway commissioners of what level of improvements you might expect to see, or what type of provisions for public safety access or turnaround, whether that's for public safety or for plow trucks or for trash removal, all these kinds of operational things. So, he had been sending questions really going back very early in the process, and had requested to be on a couple of agendas, your prior couple of meetings. But because we knew there was new information coming in, it seemed premature to have that before you. Here we are tonight, it's October 10th. The ZBA continues its hearing on the 30th. Your next meeting is the 24th. You may feel there, I don't know if you feel based on what's in the packet, if you're clear on what questions are being asked or what is properly directed to you as opposed to what would normally come out in the course of any pending permit, which is it's circulated to different town departments, public works, public safety, and so forth, and they'll provide comments, all of which will go to the ZBA for their October 30th hearing. So, and also, I mean, I think we're a little bit stunted because we don't have the complete submittal.
Right.
And in fact, Jen Geary had been holding off on sending the plans to the ZBA because it's without a transmittal, it's not really a complete filing. But, you know, I told her, go ahead and send it, because I didn't want her to sit on it, because we'll be criticized for that. But the fact is, you know, I think our preference would be to get a complete submittal, send it, because it's, there may be, there may be new or different questions, either directed to your board or directed to town council, because some of Patrick's questions were really directed to town council. Those questions may change and probably may well change because of the new information. So,
Yeah, I feel like it's wise to wait until we have a complete set of information before we make the decisions or answer any questions or engage counsel for that matter.
But is Patrick just looking for advice from us? It's not binding on anything, right? The ZBA can sit there and wave their magic wand and seemingly do what they.
they, they have an application in front of them for a variance for basically a lot with no, with less than the required constructed frontage. There was some discussion at the initial hearing of potentially conditions the board could impose that, might, cause them to look at the application, favorably, subject to conditions, as opposed to just voting it up or down. One of the questions that I think they really need to kind of make sure they are getting advice from town council is to what extent is that the ZBA's role, as opposed to simply acting on the application in front of them,
Right.
as opposed to
Like gathering information from town entities and.
yeah, or suggesting things like town meeting actions to authorize acquisition of easements. I mean, these are things that are really like, not the ZBA's role,
Yeah.
frankly. So I do think, I have moved forward with, keeping town council apprised. And I have committed to Patrick that I'm happy to have him have a conversation, because I think that's actually gonna be important to make sure that that board's, acts within its authority and doesn't exceed its authority.
Well, I think, I'm not sure, but I think the three of us, I think you were at the first meeting when they were gonna vote it, and I said, time out.
Yes, yeah.
So they don't particularly care what we think the standard of the road has to be. So if we look at this and say, you should have this, this, and this, it is simply advisory. They can then do whatever they still want. Correct?
But if we're the roadway commissioners, I mean,
This is what I want. I just,
Yeah.
No, based on what Patrick had written, it sounds like he does care.
He does care.
Yeah.
Like, there's clear, I mean, we all were there, it's very clear, there's some members of the ZBA are like really, at least,
Yeah.
there's 5 members that have different
Well, are there
people.
still 5 members, or did somebody resign?
There used to be an associate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's 5 full members,
Okay.
but there is a vacant associate
Okay.
position.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it's a very confusing process.
It is.
From being on planning board, this is almost feels like it should be there in the first place.
And we had referred it to them very, very early on, and they had said, this has nothing to do with us, which, I kind of wish they had gotten engaged, because in Marshfield, when I was the town planner, the planning board would have been the venue at which a lot of this was worked out, but.
I mean, if you're supposed to have constructed frontage, you should have constructed frontage. I mean, that would be. Why not? They say, oh, it's steep down the backside. Well, steep up the front side too, and somebody built that. So I don't know where the conversation goes even once we get a full submittal.
Mhm.
also, do we agree that we should have a full submittal before we offer any?
I'm not voting on something incomplete, keep my head.
Right.
Even conceptually, where does it,
I don't know the answer to that. What are your thoughts, Rick?
you know, quite honestly, I wish we could give Patrick some feedback. But yeah, I mean, until we have a full submittal, we can't really comment on it intelligently.
Yeah.
So can I make a suggestion then? Maybe we either invite him to our meeting on the 24th if it's submitted by then, or do a joint meeting with them on the 30th.
Invite, when you say him,
Well, Patrick in particular, he's the one with the questions. I mean, you can invite the ZBA, but I mean, to do this one meeting after the other is not gonna work with their schedule. At some point, we're all gonna have to sit in the same room and.
Well, I think your first suggestion, I think, is good.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
the
the
only one
second
asking
suggestion,
questions.
I would
Yeah.
caution you about any kind of joint meeting, because you have no regulatory authority. This is a variance application before the Board of Appeals. So I wouldn't want to muddy the water.
But therein lies with, like, no matter what we say, it still goes back to the Board of Appeals. And then what happens? Then do we sue the Board of Appeals?
Well, it seems to me as though, it seems to me that what Patrick is trying to avoid is a situation where the Board of Appeals ultimately approves something with some set of conditions, and the select board is in a position where we have to sue the Board of Appeals because it doesn't meet our roadway standards. Is that possible? I mean.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah, so it strikes me that that's what Patrick is trying to avoid. I don't know that, but.
Well, let's get a full submittal and see if you'd like to show up at our meeting on the 24th. Take it from there.
How's that sound, Angus?
That sounds good.
Okay.
See what that means.
All right. Item C is new information regarding Page School conditions assessment. This is on the scan.
And I debated whether to include this or not, because but I figured I'd put it under general discussion because it came up recently, and I wanted to just timely share the responses we've gotten on the questions that we raised. I'm specifically not asking you for any kind of action, but I don't know if based on this, if it, you know, I don't want to put in the time to put in an ARPA request for more funding. You know, I guess if you're interested in giving me kind of a sense of the body as to whether you think this might be something we want to do or not. If you do, we can, you know, if there's any further clarification, we can get that, or I can put forward an ARPA request, or I can just drop it, but I just wanted to share, kind of the Q&A that we have.
I'm kind of ambivalent about it. How do you guys feel? I know you were in favor of it, right?
No, I'm not in favor of it.
Okay.
I could go either way. If you guys said we absolutely need this, it's great. I think it's probably overkill based on, you know, it's gonna be a process to build consensus once the report is out there. I think people will have pictures, maybe it'll be a sidewalk. I don't know. They did that at the high school. And that project got funded without it. And then there's the concerns of what is too much information and.
Access and, Rick,
Yeah.
what's your thought on
Okay, of course is on.
that? Okay. So that's what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think I'll just let it lapse. I did, just so you guys are aware, I did send out, email, not to all town departments, but to Public Works and Public Safety to see if there are, suggestions people have for the remaining unallocated ARPA balance. I did caution them in my email that, at least in my read of the situation, it's very possible that this board would choose to vote the remaining unallocated balance toward the Mill Street Bridge, so I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. But I said, you know, if there are other kind of, you know, discrete items that, could be, you know, so at a future meeting and probably for I think I asked for everyone's response, I think by the end of next week. So I think I've got that penciled in for the 24th to ask you that night to either, you know, with regard to the roughly 37,000, or actually, no, I think it's roughly 37,000 that's unallocated for ARPA.
So it's good to have the fallback of the Middle Street Bridge.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
just, we don't lose the money.
Yeah.
Not gonna need it then, correct?
No, but we could reduce the 600,000 or the, you know, the.
No, I wasn't involved at the time. We did 600,000. Was that
Stabilization.
Yeah, and that's what I kept thinking. Anytime we've got money, you got cash to pay versus that, so.
So I did get a response back from Chief Dwyer, so I know he'll be submitting a suggestion on some emergency first responder, you know, equipment, 5 sets of, you know, fire gear, So he'll submit something. My guess is we'll probably get suggestions from others as well. So my intent is to give you options, and then however you want to go is fine.
Just no more clocks.
Especially when they complete redo.
Maybe we can prepay maintenance for the next.
So we have correspondence, and then, you wanna reach out to Dwyer and see? I don't wanna wait if we're done.
Yeah, I know he had to pick up his son at 8, and he was gonna
To come
come here
back.
afterwards.
Okay.
So, but he could zoom in. It's also, if you were, I don't know if you are comfortable taking up that item without him, or if you'd like him here
Well, so were there any questions on it? This is, we're going back to,
This is the Essex, item EA, the Essex, mutual aid.
I mean, it seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, I guess my question was regarding, in the current document, I have to get back and figure out where that is.
So page 39.
Okay.
I have questions, but maybe Angus has the answers to, I'm not sure.
I don't know much. I only.
That's what I tell people about me.
I basically know one thing.
So this is the same as the previous one, we're just,
Correct.
no changes.
Well, that I don't know. Okay, what, I'll tell you what I know. I know very little. Basically, this was brought to me and yeah, I know very little about it. What I can tell you is that there is an existing agreement that Dwyer says is the most recent agreement that's signed by Chief Holmes.
that's
So-
the most
That
recent.
would go back to.
So what's the one that we reviewed last year?
No.
I thought there
Oh,
was.
no, that was Nesbitt.
That's the,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So my question is.
And I have not seen that agreement, so I don't know if it's different, and I doubt it's exactly the same if it's that old.
Yeah, so, and that's sort of ties in, I guess, with my question, because it says section 3 is term of agreement, and, somewhere here it says it says be in effect thereafter until terminated. So why is this being renewed now, and what has changed?
And I don't have those
Yeah.
answers.
Again, I'll read the statement. This type of agreement allows sworn police officers from each signatory community to cross into the geographical jurisdiction of any other signatory community to carry official police business under the authority. So it's pretty broad.
So if you're like chasing somebody over.
Well, I didn't even say that. You could walk into the town and arrest somebody for something. It's pretty much carte blanche. I mean, when you read and neighboring cities and towns anticipated needing to have the ability to exercise full police powers in those communities. I wasn't involved before. It just seems very broad. I don't know how much it actually gets used or if it's just for emergencies. It doesn't specify a whole lot. Here's the one, self-activation, 6.04. Police officer who observes or becomes aware of any violation of law within the territorial limits of any party, including the sending party, may exercise police powers. You know, so basically, if whatever town is, our guy driving through Havel can start arresting people.
If they're doing a crime.
Yeah. Oh my
Well,
God.
that's,
Technically, yeah.
Or even, you know, Havel police here, Havel police, it's very broad, it's basically saying a policeman there is a policeman here. Right? So, see what the chief has for input, and then my question becomes, I know it states in here the liability is on the town in sense. But like with the chief, we know our officers are going to academy, that he's had background checks. We don't know that on other towns and cities. And you're saying they're authorized in the same fashion your officers in this town are to conduct business, so.
yeah, I think it would be, and I just actually learned earlier this week, that the prior agreement was, signed by Chief Holmes, because I hadn't, in the 6.5 years I've been here, I hadn't, when he brought this to me a few weeks ago, it was the first I'd heard of it. I wasn't aware of, any
I thought it
prior.
was brand new.
Well, no, I mean, I know there's generally mutual aid
Yeah.
between, among the communities, but I've never, seen a document to underpin that.
Mhm.
And,
Mutual aid's different. That's if the police say we need assistance, send somebody. This is if they're just driving through your town, they see an issue, they can deal with it.
well, it's called a mutual aid agreement, so, I mean, there might be things there that Dwyer can speak to in terms of the nuance there, but,
Well, I'd question, I guess, the most time be 6.04, the self-activation clause. An officer sees it, he deputizes himself and goes to work.
Well, he's deputizing himself.
He's being a little sarcastic.
So is there any financial implications of this?
not that I'm aware of.
Each town is
Oh,
responsible.
okay, it looks like here, he's, joining us remotely, so, great.
His ears are burned.
But I think, having the prior agreement to look at would be helpful. I haven't seen it.
Mhm. Did we just lose them?
Yeah, he joined and dropped, so.
There he is.
He joined.
Yeah, here it is.
Ooh, he's in the dark.
Hey, Mike. Looks like
Hi, guys.
you're David.
So Chief, we actually,
Bear with me.
we actually flew through the agenda pretty quickly. So this, the interagency agreement is the sole remaining item.
Okay.
So did you want to, maybe before we get into questions, the board members may have, maybe just provide a little bit of background as to, I know you'd mentioned to me that there's a existing agreement that Chief Holmes had signed and that that's kind of the prior comparable agreement. So if you just kind of outline to the board what's timely about this or why it's coming forward now, or if there's changes between the prior agreement and this agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay? I'm pulled over on the side of the road heading to pick up my son at school. The agreement has remained unchanged. What the county chiefs association and the DA's office discussed at a recent meeting was that many of the agencies just didn't have an updated signature from either the updated chief or they didn't have an agreement in place. So the last one, I believe, Angus, you may have the date in front of you. I believe it's 2014 under Chief Holmes. So my request is that we get this updated with at least my name, so we can be current within the county.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the prior one. I'm sure it's on file somewhere in the building, but I haven't seen it, which is fine, so.
Yeah,
So
and I
is it,
can dig out a copy of it and forward one.
So Mike, is it incumbent on each community to update it when they, realize that their personnel have changed, or is there any kind of? I mean, the duration of the agreement is indefinite?
Yeah,
right?
unless it's changed by the municipality. And I think what we've found, which is going to be important moving forward, as the town of West Newbury and as the county, Essex County Police Departments, is that we maintain a better, document of these changes as they come along. So when a new chief comes along, they're going to be looking for that to be updated. And we just feel that's going to be important.
Okay. Chris, you want to ask your questions?
Yeah. This basically allows police officers from other towns, if they're in West Newbury, to police. I don't want to say it will, but they see something wrong, they're allowed to police without any.
If they're asked to do so. So all this is
It doesn't
incumbent
say if
on.
they're asked to do so, Mike.
Okay.
Right, there's one clause with 6.04, self-activation. Police officer who observes or becomes aware of any violation of law within the territorial limits of any party, including the sending party, may exercise police powers. I understand if there's a request from the town to come and assist, but this document basically says anything they see, they can address.
Right, and
Is that
again,
possible?
it's up to the municipalities how they want to cater it to their particular community or their particular policies and procedures.
Has this been used?
Yeah, this has been in place for quite some time. And again, this is used for when we primarily are requesting aid to our community. So for instance, if we have a major incident where we're looking for police response to support us, that's when this mutual aid agreement would come into effect. It would basically bring in a police officer with their powers, which are appointed within their jurisdiction, to have full authority to perform under the same authority in the town of West Newbury
And
or another community.
that makes good sense when there's a request, but this doesn't specifically say they need to be requested. That's, I guess, my concern.
Yeah, I wonder if that number 6.04 could just be struck.
Well,
Because the prior.
So I think we're kind of making a bogeyman out of this. Just from a practical standpoint, if you're a cop in West Newbury, or if you're a cop in Haverhill, and you show up 2 or 3 towns away, and, you know, and you see some minor activity going on, you're not going to do anything. I mean, just from a practical standpoint, because it opens that individual up to all the responsibilities that go along with responding to any activity. On the other hand, if you see somebody with a gun out, pointing it at somebody else, you don't want to have to wait until you get permission to respond to that. And I mean, it strikes me that that's what this is addressing, the self-activation. You know, I mean, you would hope that, you know, if a West Newbury police officer sees a significant crime happening in some other town, that they would be able to, that they, you know, they'd be authorized to actually try to do something to thwart it. And, you know, it does say, you know, farther down in that paragraph, you know, the 6th line down, you know, I'm taking it out of context, but I don't think that affects the relevance. It says detaining offenders pending arrival of a police officer of the receiving party. So, you know, it's not suggesting or encouraging people to be, you know, road police officers, you know, all over Essex County.
That's one clause of many.
Yeah.
Engaging in stopping unlawful behavior, investigating possible criminal violations. I mean, I do think that's overly broad. And I'm not sure it's necessary if the prior item is the official request. That would be what Mike's describing. If, I know you don't have this in front of you, Mike, but, is it worth taking a look at this and you know, giving us a response about the relevance of this and why it's necessary?
Certainly.
Of this
Yep,
section?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, I can do that.
So, if, given that this is only the municipality trying to update this, there's no time, frame on this, right? So we're not
No,
delaying.
absolutely not.
Okay, is there anything else in the agreement that you want Mike to look at? So that we can-
One thing that I think, you know, while we're looking at it would be interesting. Chief, are you aware of an agreement that was signed back in 2018 that then Chief Reed was kind of pushing an agreement between West Newbury and Newburyport regarding traffic enforcement on Turkey Hill Road?
I would have to dig into those files.
Yeah, I don't know if you would be or not, because I have no idea as to how much Chief Reed was sharing information or not, but this was one of my first meetings, so it kind of rings a bell looking at this because, and I actually pulled up the packet just while we're here from like the August, I think August 13th or so of 2018. August 20th of 2018, and that packet's posted. So interesting. So basically, he wrote a memo, and there was an MOU, and to my recollection, the board at the time did approve the MOU, and I believe it was signed. And I'm looking at it now, and it's got similar language as to kind of being in effect until it's not, so being kind of perpetual. And I'd be very surprised if the current mayor of Newburyport knows it exists. Who knows? And so, but anyhow, the point is, it was brought to the board at the time by the former chief. on the auspices of, Turkey Hill Road is, kind of traverses the boundary line at times. So there's questions as to who's got legitimate enforcement authority between the city and the town. So he brought this forward as a way to make sure that, if there were traffic stops, that they would be legitimate, they would hold up in court. And I remember I was brand new here, still trying to get a lay of the land, but I remember thinking, geez, that's like a lot of rigmarole for like this very hyper-specific issue. But a lot of
Well,
cases.
yeah, and there's specific court cases. There are specific court cases that do reference having an agreement in place.
But
Versus
the
just
reason I'm bringing all this up, Chief, is this agreement, which preceded that by a number of years. You said it's 2014, the Chief Holmes signed it, is in effect today, was in effect in 2018. So I'm looking back at this and saying, why would, so I guess it just leaves me wondering, like,
How many agreements are up?
how many agreements are out there? And maybe as part of adopting this, maybe we rescind the 2018 one, just because it's not, I don't think, anytime you have legally binding agreements on a community and the chief executive or the chief law enforcement official, or maybe both, don't even know about them, that's not great. So I think it occurred to me, because I'm seeing some language in here that it seems to me would clearly address that issue that was being asserted in 2018 was an issue of traffic enforcement on Turkey Hill Road. It seems like maybe that wasn't an issue, because there was in fact a regional.
And Newburyport is part of the.
Correct, yeah, that's a two-party agreement between the city and.
But do they sign the same?
That's, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so if they haven't signed it, then you can see maybe why they wanted it,
This is Essex County Chiefs.
Oh, okay, all right,
but they may not have signed it.
Yeah.
That's all.
got it, yeah, good point, yeah. So I'll send this to you. I hadn't even thought to mention this when we spoke about this earlier, but since we've been sitting here, I pulled it up and I'm seeing it's like, seems to follow a similar template to what is here in front of you.
All right.
So can I?
And it's got a self-activation section.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it seems to be a very similar template.
Huh.
And I remember at the time, again, being very new, but thinking like, geez, that's a lot of
work
for like a very discrete issue.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
So maybe even Chief Reed didn't know that this.
Right.
correct, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
I'm just trying to imagine, how would we want, if we did support this, how would we want, our officers or in any community, how would we hope officers would respond to some significant crime they thought going on, but it wasn't their community?
Just like any other resident is unless they're requested by our police department, how would you have any idea whether they were current on their certification or, I feel like it's.
Well, based on state law now. Okay, I guess we could assume that other communities aren't following
Yeah.
state law, which I don't. I assume that other communities are.
Yeah.
But, I guess that's the basic thing. Do you make the assumption that we're the only people or the exception?
Yeah, why don't we let Mike report back on what he thinks? I really feel like it's an overreach of power, just because somebody is a police officer. Are they, currently employed? Are they on duty? Or are they just somebody that has a badge that, may not follow the high standards our own police force follows?
The other question would be, what happens if this is not signed?
Is this what?
Is not signed.
Well, I think the prior agreement. Yeah, so yeah, definitely, Chief, send over, when you're back in the office, send me the prior one you have on file. And, I'll include that when this is next before the board, just so they know what the reference point is for what's already approved, in 2014.
Great.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So the last item is just the correspondence from Whittier, the annual report.
And that's
So-
part of the town report.
Or just $263,000 for 14 students, right?
18 and change a year.
Yeah, is that, how does that compare to Kentucky? Do you know?
It's a little higher, but it's marginally higher this time.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky used to be right around 16. And I thought it used to be significantly higher at Whittier, so it's.
Mm.
oh,
Okay.
Blood pressure, well,
Curious, the numbers are so low. 0 sophomores and 2, freshmen. All right,
Well, I mean, that's something we talked about earlier, is, you know, how is admittance to Whittier handled, and, it seems like it's biased.
well, we don't know how many applied though. I mean,
Right.
the only 2 applied.
it's always been a big discussion is how the admissions work, and
Yeah.
that actually came out in that last group meeting we had when, Mayor Haverhill sort of jumped down the throat of Laurie and Lynch about they don't take,
Taking kids out.
yeah, they don't. The bigger discussion is, do they cherry pick? Seems to be, we're going to, that's a big discussion.
All right, we adjourn, or we recess?
To recess to executive session.